party off. All right. So I think we're live. All right, so we're going to do it live. CoCo Talk, episode 45. We'll be live in 3, 2.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCo Talk.
This is CoCo Talk, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer, with your host, Mr. Gameplay Goodness himself, Stevie Stroh. All right, and we are back for CoCo Talk, episode 45, live on the internet. We are here. We have compiled a cast of characters. We've gotten nothing but A-listers here today, folks. And we've even got a new member to the lineup here right now, which we'll get to in just a minute. But why don't we go ahead and start in clockwise fashion from my upper left corner. Let's start off with Ron Delvaux from Ron's Garage. How are you today, Ronnie?
Hey.
Nothing like enthusiasm there. And we have back with us, we missed you, David. We had a little impromptu show last night, and it wasn't the same without you, but back with us, Lord of the Floppy, Sir David Ladd. Welcome back, David.
Good day, everyone.
There you go. There's some mock enthusiasm. And he's an Apple guy, and we don't hold that against him. And he lover of cats, and all things retro. Please welcome to the show, Mark Overholser. Hey, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Living legend, video game designer, hardware software guru, and snappy dresser from sunny Southern California. Mr. Steve Bjork is with us.
It's beautiful out here. Spent the entire day yesterday in the sun down at Disneyland and had a great time.
Beautiful. And new to the program, bearing some type of biological resemblance and even bearing the last name of another member of our show. But I believe what we have right now for the first time is we have Ken Make It, brother of the CoCoMan, the better looking and probably more successful, financial and more well endowed Ken Reighard is with us here today. How are you, Ken?
Well, at least one of those is correct. I don't know which one. I'm not sure what else I have to add to the show. You know?
Well, you're a Cocoa nut, and you're related to this nut over here. So, and so Ken is here. The CoCo man himself, Jason Reighard, is here. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Are you doing it live?
Oh, yes, indeed.
We're doing it live. And last but certainly not least, from down under, another legend in the TRS-80 community, handsome gentleman and maker of fine quality games, Mr. Nick Marentes has joined us today. Nick, how are you? Good day.
Good day, everyone. Yep.
Good day. We have joining us in the live chat already. One of the first persons to chime in the live chat a few minutes before we went live was Disney Saints fan was here saying, looking forward to the show. First time I was able to watch the show live. Steve Powell says, looking forward to today's show. Curtis Boyle is joining us now. Norlander is saying, hi all. Tim Franklin says, hello folks. And Richard Cavell, our friend in the UK, says, hello everyone from St. Anne's in the northwest of England. So we've got a star-studded international cast. Speaking of stars and studs, Curtis Boyle has just joined us.
Sorry I'm late. Now Skype's acting up.
You gotta love a Microsoft product, right? Yeah, we will get to talking about the CoCo Crew Podcast, but another one of us has been immortalized by being on the big show the major leagues, being on the CoCo Crew Podcast as an interviewee, none other than our lovely and talented Curtis Boyle. So thanks for taking time from your celebrity-dom to join us today.
I wish that was why I was late, but
got cornered signing autographs on your way back, right? So
No. He's on Canadian time.
yeah, we're kind of lackadaisical laid back here.
Yeah,
my tongue was frozen to a pole. So
There you go.
Those metric clocks, You guys already screwed up the temperature. You're messing with time now too. So. So, this week in CoCo, what happened? Well, the CoCo Crew Podcast dropped, as we say. Our own Curtis Boyle was interviewed. A lot of news. We did hear a nice segment about the John Linville's sound cartridge, which was pretty cool. Hearing some of the music I thought was good. And then we saw a really cool game review, or we heard a good game review that I was hoping to create a video companion to, but I don't have the disc yet to do it, so we'll try to plan that maybe for next week. But Neil Blanchard talked about a cool Dragon CoCo game that was called Sky Kid. Was that the name, Curtis?
Super Kid
Sky Kid. I knew it was something like that, and it sounds like it's a platformer. I haven't seen it, but hearing the digital speech and hearing the music on it and stuff, it sounds like an interesting title, so I'm looking forward to playing that game and doing a review on that game too, and trying to get some tie-ins between the stuff that appears on their podcast. Maybe we can do a video piece to that.
Well, video follow-up on a Game Player's Corner there with Neil is a good idea, I think, because there being an audio-only podcast, and of course games are usually visual, it'd be kind of nice to have the companion piece afterwards. We let Neil do the review on their show, and then a week or two later we kind of do a follow-up with Neil and kind of play the game live, and then people can see what they're hearing.
Yeah, I've done Text Adventures in Braille. Have you done that before?
No, but I have done the scratch and sniff one.
You say games are usually visual. I mean, it's like, yes, name a game that's not visual.
20 questions.
Yes. So, and
Trivial Pursuit.
Nick Marotta is here. So, Ken, we're going to put you on the spot. And tell us a little mini history of what you did with a CoCo when a CoCo was new. Maybe touch on what you're doing now for a career otherwise, and then if you're doing anything now in the retro hobby with a real computer or emulator, maybe share that with us. Is that okay? For short notice? Welcome to the program, Ken.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm here to bring down the show, but some of the
We'll judge you later.
Okay, good. Some of the origin you probably know because Jason's probably related to you. I believe Christmas, we got for Christmas a Color Computer 2 package that included a CoCo 2, a tape cassette drive, a little tiny printer, and I think Bust Out and the 2 Black Beauties.
Ooh.
So I think it was a special sale they had or something. It was 16K standard color basic, and a while later, after we was looking through, got one of those TRS-80 microcomputer news magazines that they gave a free subscription to, that I couldn't type in the programs that was in there because it was in extended color basic.
Right.
So I had to beg for the 64K/extended color basic update, which we did get. And we had to wait, a week for them to send it away and do the magic.
Yes. They took
it much longer.
They took it to the tree where the Keebler elves work.
Absolutely, where the shoemaker elves were there and wondering what the hell they were doing making computer stuff, but that's another story. So as I grew up playing with the computer, we eventually, TRS-80 Microcomputer News, when it went out of business, we get 2 issues and we could pick the magazine to pick, and we fortunately picked the Rainbow, which was probably the best of them. I don't really know. I haven't really read any of the other ones, so they came and went. So then I spent a lot of my free time programming in BASIC, helping my dad with a statistical program that he used for at work. He was using it to get the statistics to calibrate some of the machines. He worked in the hematology department at the hospital. Eventually, I submitted a entry to the 4th Rainbow Adventure Contest that went nowhere. I did not win. Place, show, and they may have laughed me out of the building. I don't know. Eventually, I did get, if you remember in the Rainbow, there was the Novices Niche. You remember that little where they had put the shorter programs? I eventually got a small game in that it was probably 1990. So, and then I published 3 more games that I wrote home from college one year in the death throes of the Rainbow, if you remember the newspaper tabloid format. And a couple of programs, because Jason, being the more social of us, he had made friends with Frank or Fred Swigger. What's the guy's name, Jason?
You're muted, Jason.
It was Frank Swaggart of Farna Systems down in Georgia.
Yeah, World of 6 to 8 Micros.
Yes, and I published and had a couple games in some early issues of that, and then I just sort of drifted away because that was before the internet was big and the community was going. I mean, that was all. And I didn't have the means to like travel to the CoCo Fest or anything. Rainbow Fest had been over by then, so that's where it is. That's my history of it. I grew up with the thing.
Excellent.
Currently, that's the one right there. Mm-hmm. And currently, I work as a software developer. Right now, I'm working for a steel processing company, writing some of their ERP software. And I've worked for several years in the computer industry. So,
what programming environment do you use now in the real world on modern stuff?
What we're working on right now is a Windows app using Windows Forms in .NET and using C# as our language and SQL Server database. So,
cool. And are you doing anything retro now with a real CoCo or an emulator or anything like that?
Well, Jason was kind enough to get me a copy of Forest of Doom, so I die in the Forest of Doom on occasion with an emulator. He also, as he mentioned yesterday, that he found some of my old discs with some of my things I've written in my youth on there, and I'm thinking of just putting those out there, so if anyone in the community wants to see how bad my juvenile work was.
Yeah.
They're mostly the ones that didn't get published. I think there's 3 adventure games, one being the aforementioned entry into the 4th Rainbow Contest.
Okay.
A couple one I wrote before just to learn how to do it, and another one I wrote after, probably for the 5th Rainbow Adventure Contest that never happened.
Now, back in the days when you got your first color computer and it had that beautiful color basic, standard color basic, and you worked with it for a while, right? How long? Months before you upgraded?
Yeah, it was probably months.
Probably the most frustrating thing for you, and the thing that you said was the best command they had to extended basic, was the edit command, so you didn't have to keep retyping lines.
So much, because we had a book that we bought. It was like TRS-80 color computer programs, and we would type them in there, and if you messed up a long line, and you had to type the whole bloody thing over again. So that was the best thing they ever did.
Mm-hmm. That was a great typing tutor in that way, I guess, because you get lots of practice. But
right.
Yeah, I have lots of practice, but I still don't type properly because I learned it wrong when I was a kid.
Very cool. So what is your emulator you're running Forest of Doom on right now?
Right now I'm just running VCC because that's the quickest and easy to get running. But what is the best Color Computer 3 emulator?
You just open a can of worms.
You can start wars with that one.
What's the best MC10 emulator?
Really
a block of wood, probably, right?
Yeah, a large
block. So I will give VCC the credit there that it is a plug and play emulator. You can launch it and you can run stuff.
Most stuff.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been trying to get MAME up and running, and I think I got it. I liked it better when MES was split from MAME because I did use it several years ago, and seemed like it was easier to use when MES was split from MAME to me.
I agree.
And played with it a few years ago and then came back to it. So I have, and I kind of revisited again when I stumbled across Steve's videos and going, hey, I remember seeing that game.
Yeah. Yeah, Ken, you've been commenting on my videos for a while before we ever met. I just remembered the name, so I think it's funny that I had you doing lots of comments. I met your brother first, and now I'm meeting you. So
I don't know.
Which actually brings up a question I have. How do you deal with all the mental anguish of being related to your brother?
Well, first of all, I live 200 miles away.
Oh,
I thought you guys were in the same house. You got the same paneling back behind both of them.
We have coordinated our genuine imitation faux wood paneling.
Yes. No,
are you both in the basement? I know one of you are.
I'm in the basement because my house, it is really hard to find someplace quiet enough to have a conversation like this. So I've retreated to the rather messy basement with a card table and a laptop. So.
And the 70s paneling.
Yes, the 70s. Well, you should have seen it before we replaced it with this.
wow.
There was dark paneling that they didn't like, so they painted it with texture paint. It was awful.
I thought you were going to say it had shag carpet walls or something.
No, I'm sure it had shag carpet at some point, but that was already removed when we bought the house. So
No, that's in his van.
Oh, I'll tell you that shag carpeting.
I prefer to call it the shaggin'
audio
wagon.
recordings.
We got a couple people joining us in the live chat right now. John Linville says VCC runs stuff that even that doesn't even work on an actual CoCo 3.
That is true.
And then we have somebody called SupWitcha11 says greetings from Southern California. Welcome, SupWitcha.
Why aren't you outside playing?
Yeah, right. From the high desert area, Victorville. Welcome, SupWitcha. So yeah, we're glad to have you here, Ken. It's all family here. It's a good times. John Linville's here. John Linville, host of the CoCo Crew Podcast, which we'll get to talking about today. Alan Huffman has now joined us. Hello, Alan Huffman of Sub-Etha Software.
Greetings, everybody.
Love the shirt there, the I'm a Coconut shirt. I love it. Nothing like product placement.
OG Stevie Stroh has independently changed all of the fashion sense of the CoCo community.
Or the better.
Or the worst.
Okay.
And he's feeling my caffeine addiction, too.
Yes, and using my I'm a Coconut CoCoTALK bug here. So yeah. So might as well be a shameful plug here. If you'd like to get some of our unofficial CoCo merchandise, you can go to 8bit256.com for all your retro merchandise needs. That was Ken holding up his invisible mug there. So yeah, it's interesting how almost everybody here who I'm talking to now, a lot of these people I met through posting videos on YouTube. So that's how I met Curtis. Curtis and I become mortal enemies since then.
I'm not sure he's winning yet, but
and a handful of the interviews that we've done have been because the author of the game came across a video and commented, and of course we responded and saying, hey, we'd love if you'd like to share some stories with us. So a lot of interesting things have happened by just putting stuff on YouTube, so it's been kind of cool, and how we're all together here and we're here every week, and I just think there's something cool about if we have something in common, something that we enjoy, something we like talking about, it just kind of brings us together and keeps us together. It's cool stuff. Anybody have any? Now, also just so you know, because I don't want to be redundant for a first. Last night we did a spontaneous live show on the Facebook page, which is also being posted to YouTube. So CoCo Talk After Dark number 6. There's a lot of cool stuff in there that you're just going to have to watch. We're not going to rehash it, but Alan showed all the stuff he got in the mail. So Alan showed off his Wi-Fi receivers, his Bluetooth receivers. Alan later showed us how we could telnet into his CoCo through the internet, which was cool. And John Strong showed off a lot of his work in progress projects. So we got to see the 3D printer printing. We got to see a mini MPI case being put together. We got to see what the CoCo SDC case looks like, a joystick design. So when you're done watching this train wreck of a show, we've got 3 more hours of train wreck for you to watch later on, which is our After Dark episode. So there's a lot of stuff in there that we won't rehash here today for your information. And on that note, Alan, anything else you want to add to all the interesting things that happened last night?
Well, we continued playing with this stuff for probably an extra hour. After I had Bill Noble connect and interact with me running an old program called ASCII Express, written by Greg Miller and Eric Gaverluck. After that, I got in touch with Roger Taylor. He connected. He didn't have ASCII Express, so he went from his CoCo on a chip FPGA device, connected to my color computer running ASCII Express, used that to download ASCII Express, put it on his virtual machine, and then I was able to connect back to him. So we were doing some experiments back and forth. So we had several flavors of FPGA color computers connecting to real color computers, Nitros 9, Disk Basic, Bitbanger, RS-232 packs. It was a good time.
Cats and dogs living in harmony. That is cool when you think about it. And it's technically impressive. At the end of the day, what are you actually doing? What you're actually doing isn't that really significant, but the fact you can is the cool part. You know what I mean?
What we liked about it is now, instead of like my grandfather used to do, when he wanted to get a file on his color computer, he had to go to his PC, download it from a website, copy it to an SD card, turn around, plug the SD card into his little color computer, then use the file. I mean, I can't imagine how our forefathers lived like that when today they can just type a command and get it directly on the machine.
Uphill, both ways.
And hitting play on the cassette player.
Oh!
Oh, wait, volume's too low.
That gave a few shivers to a few folks.
Yeah, that's like the modern nails on a chalkboard right there, is listening to cassette squawk, right? So.
No, that was the most entertaining part, watching your screen slowly fill in and listening to the data.
Okay, let me ask a question. This came up on one of the message boards 20 years ago, maybe longer. There was a claim made that in one of the original Star Trek movies that came out since 1980, that in the mix, some of the sound effects were sourced from a color computer cassette noise. Does anybody remember hearing somebody talk about that decades ago?
Faintly. Do we ever determine if there was?
I don't know, but there was a guy that was part of the mailing list back then who was a studio musician who played on a lot of soundtracks. I can't remember his name. And he might have been the one that presented that information because he worked out in Hollywood and worked with people that did that. So there might actually be something to it. But if not, I'd like to start the rumor that in one of the Star Trek movies, there's a CoCo cassette. Go watch them all and report back.
Okay. Now, this was in a message board 20 years ago, so I think people are still sitting there holding their breath waiting for the response, too, right? So
I'm not watching 5. No.
What? How was that explained last night? Somebody eloquently explained what the who said that last night on what the titles for episode 5 and 6 were of the Star Trek movies. Was that you, Marco?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said like episode 5 was the search for cash and the episode 6 was the apology or something like that. I forgot who mentioned that. We're talking about Star Trek movies, so.
Yeah, the internet has ruined so many things, though, because now people will actually post everything, and you can see the clips, and you can hear the sounds, and we don't get to speculate on things wildly anymore, so we have to come up with new things to speculate on.
Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way...
Just remember, all Trekkies, they say the same thing. The even number of Star Trek films don't suck.
Yep.
There you go, 2, 4, and 6. Yep. That's it. Nick Marotta says, stop using grandfather and CoCo in the same sentences. And Sup Witcher says, is there a cure for this CoCo following? The sickness has forced me to acquire a CoCo 1, 2, and 3, an SDC, an MPI, printers, an MC10, ROM packs, out the wazoo. I have issues. Please help. Is there a support group for I think you come to the wrong place. We're nothing but enablers here.
Yeah, the only cure is more CoCo.
Hey, just remember, when it comes to nostalgia, it's usually about a 30-year cycle. So 30 years when you kind of like something, 30 years later you kind of, hey, those were great times. I don't remember having such good times now as I did then.
Right.
It's stuff that's been analyzed by specialists that, and for the CoCo, 30 years, just about right.
There it is. All right, well, we're going to take our first commercial break. So this is the time for everybody to pause for the cause, hit the restroom, refill your drink, whatever you got to do. We'll be back in about a minute or so. If you're watching live, feel free to hang out or go to the bathroom, do whatever you got to do. We'll be back. You are watching CoCo TALK.
Hey, have you got your CoCo 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of Ram and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCo TALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowan, and you're watching the original gamer, Stevie Stroh. And when you're done watching, come over and listen to the CoCo Crew Podcast.
Hi, this is John Linville.
And Neil Blanchard.
We are the CoCo Crew. I hope you're enjoying watching Stevie Stroh play video games, especially the CoCo games. And when you're done with that, check out our podcast at CoCoCrew.org.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCo TALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
I cannot wait for that movie. Last night we were saying what movies are we looking forward to seeing. Floppy Life is on the list.
Right? No, that's a trilogy from what I understand. Right?
No spoilers.
Really?
Is it an odd or even one?
Is it a what?
An odd or even one. Like Star Trek.
I think it's always odd with David, isn't it?
Oh, this is the first one, so it's always odd with David.
It depends on if you're base 0 or base 1.
That's true.
Yep. Episode 0.
I did put a link in the Skype chat about decoding Star Trek, the noises from Star Trek 4.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any project updates they want to go over before we get into our main? We have 2 topics today, so we're going to have Nick. You've got a why did Tandy do that, right?
A short one, yeah.
A short one, and then I think Curtis has a little something technical to share with us.
Okay.
Didn't you say something you were going to show something off during the garage segment?
Yeah, I said I could. If Ron it has a short one, I can add a little bit to it.
Yeah, I think Ron actually has no garage segment today, so you could be the garage segment.
Okay. Should I go to my garage then when I?
It's completely up to you. So we have
20, but
we have a couple of segments. Our main, so we're going to talk about a little bit of reviewing of the CoCo Crew podcast. So for those of us who got a chance to listen to it, we have a good. Why did Tandy do that? So, Curtis, you got a small tech segment. David, anything tech with you today?
Ron's got an interesting.
Nope.
What's that on Ron's screen? That paint program.
Ron's got Garfield up on the screen right now.
Yeah, but he's got the colors wrong.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to review a bunch of stuff that was posted on Facebook this week too. So like the
reboot.
the high res graphics adapt. There's a bunch of stuff posted on Facebook that we'll get to as well. But just trying to get a feel for that. So, what do you guys want to do next right now? You want to talk about the CoCo Crew and Curtis's interview and kiss his ass and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
All right. So first off, Curtis Boyle, we're very honored. We are very honored to have you amongst us now. We have more elite royalty with us, from Sir David Ladd now to Lord Curtis Boyle.
Well, like I told John, they saved the worst for last. So that was me.
I gotta say, it was a good interview. I like the way they do interviews. It's just there's no distractions. It's just gets right down to the brass tacks, and you can get to hear all kinds of cool things. And it was good. So good job for the CoCo crew. Good job, Curtis. Congratulations.
I did find one thing interesting, which I didn't know. I never asked you guys when you guys got interviewed. Is that they don't send you any questions ahead of time. It's just wing it right from the word go. So that was interesting. I thought I'd have to do a little bit of research, or have a couple base questions that they would email me ahead of time. So it was a little bit of a surprise.
Ah, okay. I didn't know. David, what about you when you had your interview? Were you have any talking points ahead of time?
Nope.
Yeah.
It was just covering, I figured it was going to be the same stuff that when anybody interviews you, it's talk about yourself, then a focus on a specific current thing that you're doing, which for me at the time was all the floppy stuff that was going on, of course.
The floppy talk, yeah.
I was going to ask, did they ask you about your upcoming movie, or whether it's accurate?
Very funny.
Or the sequels.
Yeah. I actually wasn't sure what they were. John Linville's in a live chat. He goes, preparations. Interesting idea. I wasn't sure, so I had sent a little outline, just a little mini bio, and some of my backstory and things like that, which I just had provided them. And
some of which was even true.
Yeah. Yes. No, but the interview came out good, and there's a lot of people who know more about your history in OS 9 and things like that, so they were definitely asked a lot of good questions and things like that, so it was good.
Yeah, having Boise on was quite good, because he's the one we passed Nitrous 9 to when I think I was the last of the four original authors that was still working on it. I just didn't have time anymore. Right. So I passed the torch, and now I'm kind of getting back into it, so it's kind of like the torch is expanding its reach like an Olympic torch or something.
Yeah, and it almost feels like it might be coming around,
Well, he's still heavily involved. He's not vacating it yet.
No, but the fact that you're back in it.
Bill's back in it.
Yeah. Are you going to get Wes back in it?
Might get back. Yeah, it sounds like Wes is at least thinking of it. He's pretty busy with his job, too. Alan, I think, is way too busy with his. He's got a family and stuff now, too. That's kind of keeping him too busy.
Right. One of the things I do want to show off here real quick on the CoCo Crew podcast is that they have they've updated their logo, so that kind of passed around today. And I think this is the latest, greatest CoCo Crew podcast logo here, and it looks good, right? So you got the three amigos. And for the longest time, we were saying, well, when's Myro going to get put into the mix here? Because there was always the picture of John and Neil. That's how the show started. So now we've got in fact, now we've got to Photoshop Boise in here doing a photo bomb, because it seems like Boise's a bigger part of the show now, too. So we'll work on that. But no, it looks good. So this is the latest CoCo Crew podcast little logo thing there, which I think looks good. We had talked about, Curtis, that we want to do the Nitrous 9 interview with you and Bill and Wes to talk to the people who created that project. And I know you touched on a lot of it, but I think that would be a good interview to do, and I think we mentioned it to the CoCo Crew. That would be good to have them in on it, because usually you're my guy to ask all the smart, hard-hitting questions, and if I need to interview you, then I'm lost. So we need somebody else to who understands Nitrous 9 and the history to ask some of the questions. So I think that would be a great crossover to have some of the CoCo Crew and like Boise and stuff in here when we talk about. And I think that would make good like a multi-part interview where we talk about Nitrous 9, the original version, and then we know it was transitioned, and maybe we do a follow-up interview with the people who worked on it post-transition, when it went to open source.
The original Nitrous 9 has actually got two stages, too. There's me, Wes, and then Bill, and then there was Bill, me, and Alan DeCock who came in and kind of shook things up, too. So
So I think there's more to mine there on the nitrous nine topic for sure. And you did talk a little bit about. I would really
like to get an interview with Kevin Darling and some of the other people, because a few of them have actually kind of rejoined, the CoCo on Facebook and stuff, like Mike Holland. They're involved with the level 2 version 3 upgrade too, because I'd love to get the expanded history of that and who all was involved. But that might be a bit harder to arrange.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go over the show notes real quick from the show, and you guys feel free to chime in at any time if there was a segment that you liked. But so in our news segment, I'm just going to skim through here real quick. Browser loading a web page from my CoCo 3 running the improved HTTP daemon on the DriveWire Mac server. Yeah, so Boise's been talking about this for a while now, how he's running the DriveWire Mac server now, which has been a pretty good project. And Jim Gary releasing Meteor Storm. I mean, it's like, when does Jim Gary not release a new game? They did talk about Brian Joyce's blog, the FD501.com. So Brian Joyce is working on a game project. And so we'll just go ahead and give Brian Joyce a plug there right now. So Bill the Judas. Bill is Boise's partner who created the CoCo book. So Bill the Judas is apparently going to be auctioning off his collection, and I understand it's probably an impressive collection. Somebody has written a tool to help program in BASIC. Mike Rowan did his Game Master cartridge demo, part 1. I did watch part of that demo, and I'm looking forward to more of that.
Part 2's out.
Okay, is it out now? Forest of Doom Alpha is on the MC10. I think we saw a peek of that recently too when Jim Gary was on the live stream with us. And so the host discussion was talking about cross-posting, aka spamming. I was contemplating, do I want to add my 2 cents to that? I think I'm going to hold off for now because for the sake of brevity. But maybe some other time we'll visit that. But I thought it was a good host discussion, and to hear people's point of view on that, which I think was mostly positive. Good tech segment. Did you guys hear the tech segment about the Game Master cartridge?
Mm-hmm.
And I really like listening to the music demo on there, how you could really beat up the chip to get some nice warbly sounds out of the chip, so it's not always the clean notes, So kind of working that chip sounded good. And I love a percussion track. It's one thing, we're lucky to have music in the first place, but if you can get music and percussion, that to me that's the whole package there. So I loved hearing that. Curtis Boyle interview, of course, which was really good. We have Curtis here with us.
Yeah, and you just skip that part.
Yep. Now, Neil brought up something that we talked about. I think it was a CoCo Talk After Dark. The MC10 power adapter, right? We discovered, because I pulled mine out of the box and looked at it, so just to follow up on that, the output is actually AC. The adapter is not outputting DC, it's actually outputting AC, and it was 8 volts AC was the output on that, right? So for those who weren't sure of the voltage, or if anybody needs a replacement adapter, and of course, according to Neil, you can get the NES, a generic NES adapter will work with an MC10 if you need that spare part. And then the Super Kid review, I want to find that game and I want to play it. So we'll try to plan that. So that's kind of the quick highlights. But anybody who listened to the podcast have any segment that kind of rung good with them, or anything you want to add on to or just comment on?
The CoCo GMC, very cool.
Yeah, you've got one, don't you, Mark?
Yes, I do.
You playing with it?
No, not yet. I haven't assembled it. I'm running behind on stuff.
Yeah. It sounds neat, and I love sound.
Yeah.
I love sound in the game. Yeah. Neil's segment was good too. I like it when you get to, especially I've been sitting here listening to Neil talk up this game. He's like, oh man, this game is so good. It's got digital speech. It's got music that sounds like chip tunes and everything else. I'm like, okay, but if that's all I'm going to hear, I'm going to be a little disappointed. And then 2 seconds later, he actually played the clip. I'm like, yes, this is an audio show. Let me hear some audio. And it rained upon me, and it was glorious. And so, yeah, and it sounds really good. So I'm really looking forward to checking out that clip and playing a game. And I like Neil's reviews because they're like right to the point. He talks about it. He explains it. He gets in. He gets out, unlike me, where I flabbergast for hours on end.
Rage quit, I think it's called.
So Neil does a nice, concise way of explaining it, talking about it, and wrapping the whole thing up. So good job, Neil. And Neil's inspired me to play a few games I had not even heard of before, like the Contras I had never heard of before, and hearing him talk about it inspired me to want to play that game, and so now I want to check this game out, so we'll keep that going. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to the collaboration video between the two shows after the podcast is officially released, so people can have a follow-up with the actual video of the game and have Neil on, kind of explaining things too. Yeah, if he's up for that, I've extended that invitation. The offer's there. If he wants to do that, he's told me he's up for it. It's just trying to get schedules to sync is the only issue at this point. Okay, well that's good. No, that'll be good. Like when we had Boise on talking about CMOC, it's nice to have somebody talking about a subject that adds some legitimacy to it. Actually knows what they're talking about. Yeah, actually knows what they're talking about. It's kind of not what our shows normally like, but. So
value add happens.
Value add. Yes. So good job, CoCo Crew. That was episode 32. Check out the CoCo Crew podcast at CoCoCrew.org. They're available on iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn and other places where podcasts are found. I just saw something that John posted today, something about SoundCloud. Now, I haven't seen SoundCloud yet, but SoundCloud, I guess, is another way where you can hear audio on the internet. So that might be another place you can consume the CoCo Crew podcast. I'll have to check that out.
It's used by a lot of musicians, like non-professional musicians. Some podcasts, people use it too.
Right. Indie music.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, another place. Get yourself out there.
In fact, I even still have some of my stuff on there. I can't even remember. I've been on it a while.
I would almost say that might be a form of cross-posting. I got a kick out of that. I'll just say this much. The whole topic was basically when it was posted on Facebook, my name was not mentioned, but it was like, yes, there's so many Facebook groups, and there's a certain show that's posting in all of these Facebook, certain show that will remain nameless that was posting in more than one group, and then of course when the CoCo Crew talks about it, whose name do they mention over and over again? Mine. So, so yes, at least the name was mentioned. But listen, you got to promote.
It was a veiled secret.
It was, it's a thinly veiled. Oh, John's saying it's a different CoCo Crew on SoundCloud. It's a different one. Oh, now my curiosity has been piqued. Okay, so we'll have to check that one out. We're going to get a CoCo Crew After Dark by some chance. CoCo Crew on SoundCloud. So we'll have to check that out. At the end of the day, I think if you're a person who's trying to create content and that content is meant to be, for lack of a better term, a gift to the community, and you're trying to share it with communities, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And the intention isn't bad, obviously. Is it received as possibly too much oversaturation of information? Your opinion may vary, but you can't have too much of a good thing. And like what John was saying, it's a good problem to have when there's a lot of content being created and there's a lot of enthusiasm in here. And so I would prefer to focus on the positive rather than negative. If you're getting too many posts, scroll past it and move on.
The way I look at it is that if you have, first of all, you have to promote your own shows, and you're promoting it to groups of many people. Now, the people that have been there for a while, of course, see this every week, and it can get a little tiresome. But they have to realize that you've actually got new people joining the groups all the time who've never heard of or never seen either of the shows. Mm-hmm. So I don't see a problem with putting the advertisements there, because otherwise they will never know they exist. They will never go listen to them or watch them.
Right. And Facebook is very vapid, Go ahead, Mark.
There's another thing too. We've never done it with CoCo Talk, but you can pay and get paid advertisements. I see them all the time pop up in my feed.
Yeah, I've tried that. That's what they call boosting a post. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we did the Jerry Buckner interview for Pac-Man Fever, I boosted that post. I spent, I want to say, $35 or not. I didn't spend a lot of money, but it was one of these things. It's like, well, spend $35 and reach 70,000 people, And I did that. As a matter of fact, that you want to talk about a promotional fail. Jerry Buckner and Pac-Man Fever. I think these are two, well, let's just say, known names and known entities, especially if you're a fan of 80s culture. And Alan Huffman was there too, right? Alan's the one who actually kind of set up that interview. I had spent so much time planning and preparing I had made a bunch of music videos for all of the different songs as teasers. I was doing teaser clips. I was posting in tons of different groups. I was trying to promote the hell out of this thing. I promoted the hell out of this thing for 2 weeks leading up to this, because to me this was a fairly big event, and I posted to dozens of different retro groups, because I figured if you're in a retro group, you know what Pac-Man is. You've probably heard the song Pac-Man Fever. You might want to hear from the co-creator, right? So I promoted the hell out of it manually, and I even paid for the Facebook boosting to reach 70,000 people or whatever. And, we got, I don't know, maybe 24 people watching us live. And I just checked it today. I think to date it's gotten maybe 150 views. So, even when you go overboard, it doesn't necessarily help the cause. But all that being said, if you don't do everything you can, nobody's going to know. So, and I guess somewhere in the middle, you must find balance, right? So,
agreed.
All right, so I've said my 2 cents on that. What's going on in the live chat right now? What am I missing here in the live chat? Let's acknowledge our viewers here at the moment. So there's been some discussion on Procoms and BBSing and so on. I do remember Procom Plus. I remember using that one, and we're talking about different RoboBoard BBS systems. So handful of side conversations here in the text chat talking about RS-232s and modeming and terminal programs. Supwitch is talking about a deck view. You can multitask and run a bulletin board on the desk view. Okay. Richard Lorbieski is talking about an XT clone that he ran. All right, so yeah, we've got a whole bunch of people talking about bulletin board systems and communications on the sidebar there. So hopefully we're caught up
the big one there is Ribs, which was the CoCo one that Ron Byler did, and it actually was FidoNet compatible, so we could actually communicate the CoCo and OS9 lists on the Fido lists anyway. And actually, they would get the messages spread all over the world every night. That would, the machines would talk to each other and start dispersing it. It was kind of like a mini internet.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the main way most of us communicated back around that time.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine that's how my Cosmic Aliens game made its way around, because I posted it to a local bulletin board, but it made its way around the country, and it made its way at least as far north as Canada. So probably a similar thing happened there. Cool stuff. All right, so have we beat the CoCo Crew podcast review to death? Anybody want to add to that? We good? I would definitely say if you have not listened to the CoCo Crew, make sure you do. Actually, on the note of the CoCo Crew, I want to talk about 2 things too, which leads into inspiration, and which also leads into what I would consider to be community contributions, right? So I just want to go on record by saying that the CoCo Crew podcast is what got me interested in going to CoCo Fest, which I've been to twice, and I think it's a great show, and I listen to it every month, and I believe, if you love the CoCo, you should listen to that show. So they were definitely an inspiration for me. Not only in wanting to go to CoCo Fest, but they just keep the community alive, right, by talking about what goes on every month in the community. Now, one of the things that I noticed, maybe it was last year or so, because we're talking about awards right now too for CoCo Fest, like with these different awards and stuff. One of the awards was really talking about, okay, well, who does the most to promote the color computer community? And sometimes I hate these things, right, because it's like, you how can you pick who's the best? It's such a slippery slope, and by saying one person is good, you're automatically saying other ones aren't. It's almost like it's that Kobayashi Maru. But I just remember something was happening where I think John Mark Mobley had gotten an award for his promotion of the club, which is rightfully entitled to, and maybe if you also had promoted CoCo Fest, and especially somebody like the CoCo Crew, who he arguably is the biggest champion for CoCo Fest, if they aren't acknowledged as being a promoter of the event, are you going to feel slighted? I guess yes. You're going to feel slighted, I guess. Depending how you internalize that emotionally. But I think at the end of the day, what is it really about when you're trying to promote an event? Is it about personal glory, or is it about the event itself? So when it comes to the topic or the voting of who's the best community spokesperson or whatever that was, you know what I mean? It's almost like, really, we should be looking at it as like, we have people who are injecting enthusiasm and content to the community, and just be happy at the fact that we're all trying to promote CoCo Fest. Don't worry about who's the best or the biggest at promoting CoCo Fest. If you think about it, that's kind of how I think about it. So nothing I do is in the search of glory, personal glory, anyways.
Yeah, and the other problem I had with that part of the survey was that they had the separate members of the CoCo Crew as individual votes for some of this stuff, and to me, it's like a show as a whole. I'm not going to pick one host versus another type thing.
Yeah, it's hard. These are hard choices to make, and one of the topics was what was the most innovative new product, and when you have to choose between like Forest of Doom and Timberman, these are like Sophie's choices now, because they're both so good. So it's great to be recognized. It's definitely great to recognize the people who are putting in the effort and stuff. But I feel like it's a bittersweet, two-sided coin. But by acknowledging one, are you de-acknowledging the others? You know what I mean? So that's the struggle I have with these things.
Yeah, well, the only problem. Thank you, though. It's just nice to be recognized, and all of us have people that we look up to that have helped us out or get our attention. And to me, that's what it's about, is just acknowledging somebody that, hey, thanks for what you've been doing.
Right.
Some of the terminology could be different. What is the favorite, the most innovative? I'm not sure a Color Computer 1 text-based program is innovative, because that was something that was literally started 20 years ago, and if innovation means 20 years ago, but I might have worded it as like, what's your favorite new hardware item, your favorite new software? And there's nothing wrong with that. The thing we have to try to avoid is the personal things that upset somebody who feels like they've been busting their butt over something and nobody bothers to tell them thank you, because people just don't care about what they're doing. And that's been what's been going on for decades in all these little communities.
Good point.
Well, the other thing is on the hardware nomination, because there's only two. It was just me and Brandon, and obviously Brandon has a much more innovative hardware, but I think they should have expanded it to hardware projects instead of, I guess they were trying to pick new commercial projects, and I think it would be better if we just concentrate more on the project part, because there's a lot of projects that could have been nominated for it.
Right.
For the award.
And right now I'm guilty of what I'm trying to avoid, because now we're probably sounding like we don't appreciate the fact that this is even happening. So
I think it's great to have the awards, and I think that the different categories are good. Of course, everything can always be improved. It's always easy from a distance to say this should be this, and that.
Yes, but somebody has to own it and get it done, and it's done. And,
overall, I think it's great. It's great.
I'm not saying it's not good, and I'm not saying it's not good to recognize people. And what I will also say is that the CoCo Crew has always been great about that, and I think we're doing the same thing too. We're acknowledging the community on a regular basis. So even if you don't get a trophy or a ribbon or anything else, I think it's the validation, the recognition, and the acknowledgement goes a long way.
Public acknowledgement, I think, is important.
Yes, and that has been happening for 2 years now with the CoCo Crew, and now for almost a year with us. So we're definitely validating and acknowledging the community members, and I'm sure that helps.
They should make it like the Nobel Peace Prize. I really want the cash, to be honest.
Screw your trophy. Give me the money, right? So.
Well, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had anything to celebrate. It would be like, new hardware. Well, what's Cloud9 got?
It's got $100.
New software. I got nothing.
Well, that's the thing too. It's not just products coming out. You got people working on projects. Look at Alan with his little thing that he's doing with the over the telenet and stuff. It's everybody on. Half the people on this call are doing hardware. I've even got something that might be in the works for the CoCo. So it's just everybody does their little things to help and get, just make the community better.
Yeah, true. And I think in that area, I don't know what it was like before my exposure to it, but I've seen a lot of this community engagement and involvement and kind of recognition and stuff like that. So that's a good thing.
Yep.
Definitely a good thing.
Just that people aren't isolated, thinking that they're alone in the basement doing this and nobody gives a crap.
Right.
Just mentioning the projects as we see them announced on Facebook, or they're mentioned on the CoCo Crew, and then we kind of review that ourselves afterwards. It's just nice to get people's names out there. People become aware. People can start helping each other, because otherwise you wouldn't have a clue that Alan's working on this and I've already done something along one part of that, and maybe we can contribute together and get the project even better yet. So.
Right. The other part that I am also aware of that should not be overlooked is that, number one, the way the awards were handed out before was very willy-nilly. And so I think the first part of this, John Linville basically said, let's find a constructive and focused way to give out an award that, has actually been earned, number one. And then number two, if we're going to give it out, let's just try to give it out to the people who we know are going to be there, to say thank you for the people who make it to the fest. So some of these things are within the context of registered, confirmed attendees of the fest. And while on the one hand it's great to say what's a cool project, but if it's a project and it's not a product, I think it does make more sense to focus on a product, because it's something, especially again, you're tying it back into if this person's at the fest, and like if Richard's selling his cables at the fest, it ties all in, and it's kind of acknowledging and helping support the participants and the exhibitors there. So it could not have been easy to come up with the categories. It had to be done. It was done, and I'm not complaining that the survey was there. I'm not complaining about the survey. I'm just kind of sharing how I feel about having to make some of these decisions. For myself, they're just tough choices to make, and I'm a non-glory seeking person myself, anyways.
So basically, what I need to do is make sure Brendan doesn't show up. So I gotta have to board his plane or something like that. Cool, got it.
Wow.
He's gonna pull a Tanya Harding and club him in the back of the ring and think, "Limp on in here, you son of a bitch." You're not going to be able to make it to the finish line to get that trophy. Now, we're not
I already have a
competitive.
trophy, so I'm pretty much happy you guys can do whatever the heck you want.
You are an award winner, Alan Huffman. Do you still have yours with you?
I do, yep. I look at it. I look at it often. I'm like, see, the stuff I did 20 years ago. Somebody remembers.
Oh, man. Good times. Whew, man, I don't know what it is about this room today. It is just really hot in my room today. All right, so we've finished our main talking about the CoCo Crew, which even segued a little bit into CoCo Fest and the survey. Take a quick break. When we come back from the break, what do we want to talk about next? Nick, you want to do your Why Did Tandy Do That?
Yeah, we'll just do a quick short one there.
All right, so we're going to do that. We'll be right back in 2 and 2, people.
Kieran Anscombe, author of XRAW, and your brain is resolving sensory input into CoCo TALK.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. Gameplay.
To get your copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD today, head on over to 8bit256.com. There you will find several DVDs featuring color computer gameplay videos by the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. So to get your very own copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD, head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com and tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
Yeah, mention my name and get a good seat here. What is going on here? CoCoTALK is CoCoMan is playing F-16 Assault right now. This is a great game for the CoCo here. I just actually want to soak this in for just a minute. And that capture device is looking really good, Jason. You guys seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's glorious.
Wonderful. Best $11 I've spent in a long time.
Yeah. So this is composite capture off of CoCo 3. It's super clear. Artifacting's coming through good.
I'd like to know what device he's using.
Yeah.
Share.
We posted it in the link last night. But yeah, we'll post it in the YouTube chat too. We posted it in Facebook last night.
Yeah, we'll get that link momentarily. Although I don't think I can post the link, so I'll have to post it in Skype.
Post it in Skype. Yeah, okay. Or just if you post anything, if you just say hello in the in the YouTube chat, I will knight you and make you a moderator so you can do it. All right. So Nick Marentes, I'm gonna do the official graphic and theme song here. Are you ready?
Ready.
Are you going to be doing video, or are you just going to be audio?
Nah, just talk.
I'm just going to be chatting it up. Okay, so here we go, guys. Here's our new segment that's called "Why Did Tandy Do That?" Later, we'll call it "Why Did They Do That?" But we're going to have to re-record it. So right now, it's "Why Did Tandy Do That?"
Tell me why did Tandy do that?
Take it away, Nick.
All right. This will be a short one. Okay, this is, as we know, Tandy's first computer was released in 1977, and it was called the TRS-80. So I was just thinking the other day, I said, well, okay, TRS-80, we know what that stands for, TRS being Tandy Radio Shack, and the 80, of course, is the fact that it uses a Z80 processor, so that made sense, a TRS-80. Later on, they released their next computer, the TRS-80 Model 2, which was really a very different computer to the original TRS-80, which they then called that one the TRS-80 Model 1. The TRS-80 Model 2 was still by Tandy Radio Shack, of course, so the TRS was valid. And the 80, well, it was still a Z80 processor. So that
actually, it wasn't a Z80. It was an 8080.
Oh, really? Model 2?
Model 2 was an 8080.
Oh,
like
okay.
An 8081 or something like that. But it was an Intel.
Okay.
No, it was a Z80.
Okay.
It was Z80?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought
I used to work on it.
All right, because one of the early specs that I pulled out when I was working at Radio Shack for it was supposedly an 8080. But I guess, they went to Z80 at the end.
Yeah. No, I've actually got a Model 2, so I know it's a Z80. So the name TRS-80 was still valid, and they just added the old model part. So you had a Model 1 and a Model 2. That all made sense. Of course, later on, a few years later, we saw the TRS-80 Model 3s and the Model 4s, and it still was valid. The TRS, Tandy Radio Shack, and the 80 because they were all still a Z80. But I was just thinking, okay, the color computer came out in, 1980?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It was also called a TRS-80. Tandy Radio Shack, well, that part's valid. 80, it didn't have a Z8, so I was just wondering, why did Tandy do that? Why didn't they call it a TRS-68 for a 6809?
It was the 1980s.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I was just wondering, why did they change? Why didn't they give it a different name? Because it kept on going. Later on, they called all their computers TRS-80. Whether the pocket computer, for example, was a TRS-80. Mm-hmm. Why didn't they change the name? Does anyone have any answer behind that?
Yeah, I can give you kind of an explanation. The TRS-80 line was actually a brand, and that's what they stuck with it until about 1980. And when they came out with the Model 16, that was for the 68,000 Model 2, basically. It was a souped-up Model 2. Then they went from the TRS-80 line to Tandy, and then they also changed from that Mercedes silver, or what we call Battleship Gray, to white. And that's when they renamed all of it to Tandy. But it was basically because of it was more of a branding thing. It was everybody identified TRS-80, and they felt if you had changed it up, to match with the color computer, and they had other products as well, that people would be confused about it.
Yeah, right. I have to agree. I think that was the exact reason that they did it, because it was, if you knew Radio Shack and you wanted to look at a computer, you instantly knew to ask about a TRS-80. Just like at the time in the late 70s, if you went to Commodore and you wanted to see a computer, it'd be a PET, and then that was kind of like the branding, the show name for it.
Right. Well, that makes sense, I guess. So I guess the name originally came out, let's say the engineers came up with the name TRS-80, but then once the computer became popular, marketing department kicked in and decided to then use it as the branding, as you say, and it just carried throughout the rest of the line, TRS-80.
Yeah, if you remember the history of the Model 1, when they made it, it was a big gamble at the time. They didn't anticipate it to be as successful, or they thought, well, if it fails, and they would just, be done with it. But that's where they didn't really think forward ahead about other products that they were going to roll out computer-wise. A lot of people thought this was going to be a failure, and they thought this was going to be kind of a folly thing.
Yeah, they always figured that they made enough machines to have one in every store. That way they could use as a business machine. And I just found out where the 8080 computer was. Before they came out with the Model 2, they contracted with a company to bring in a workstation based on the 8080. That's where I got confused.
Okay. Yeah.
Was that actually produced, that workstation? Or?
Somebody else built it for them and they resold it.
That one I don't remember.
Right.
Yeah. I was working at Radio Shack when they first started selling the original Model 1, and we got the stuff in for a professional workstation based around the 8080.
I think there was a model, there was a Tandy 10 or a Tandy 16, if I remember. I mean, it was a very obscure machine.
Yeah.
But then they decided to do with the 68,000. When I was at Tandy Computer Assembly, they announced the Model 16. They didn't even have a name for it. But that was going to be, that machine was going to compete against the IBM XT. That was going to be their answer to IBM's machine.
It was still called the TRS-80 though, Model 16.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there was a 16, 16B, and then they rebranded it as 6000.
Yeah. And was it actually a 68,000? Only a 68,000, or was it a Z80 again?
It had
with
both.
a card? It had both.
Yep.
Yeah,
if you ran the Z80, you could run your TRS-DOS stuff just fine. If you ran the 68,000, you'd run was it Xenix or whatever they called it?
Yeah, it was Xenix, and then they also had they had I think it was Tandy 16 DOS. It was a multi-user DOS. It didn't work well, and then that's when they went with Santa Cruz Operations and Microsoft, and they got Xenix.
Yeah, if I remember, Xenix actually used the Z80 as a coprocessor, an I/O processor or something, didn't they?
Right. Yeah. Actually, yeah. The 68,000 was faster. I believe it started out at 8 megahertz, or initially it was 6 or 8 megahertz, and and it was their first quad layer board that they ever produced, and they actually sold kits that you could actually take a Model 2 and make it into a 16. The older Model 2s, you had to replace the power supply, but you could actually convert. They sold conversion kits.
Neat.
So basically, they're all TRS-80s. And anyone know why then they did change the name, and what was the reasoning? Was it because they got sick of people calling it the Trash 80, or what was the reason to switch to Tandy computer?
It was both. One was the problem with the Mercedes Silver. It was painted, and so they actually had a paint shop in the factories that would actually touch up the paint. With the white cases, it didn't require any painting whatsoever, and that was probably one thing. Was it cut down on costs, and then also like you're explaining, they were coming out with more product that was not based on the Z80, but it was on other processors and stuff. And so that was when they decided, it might be a good time to switch over, because they had the Model 100s, they had the data terminals, and then they were going into the PC clone one as well.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, too, is they introduced a new type of store called Tandy Computers.
Yeah, the computer centers.
Yep, Tandy Computer Centers. And also internationally, they were known as Tandy. They weren't really known that much for Radio Shack, right, Nick?
That's right. They were Tandy Electronics here.
Yeah, they were Radio Shack here in Canada.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had the computer centers. Those came around about 1981, and then in '84, they were going to rebrand those as business centers, and because they also sold copiers and telephone systems and also cell phones.
Yeah, what they were also trying to do too is, if you were a smaller market, you would have a Radio Shack store with a Tandy Computer Center in it. If you're a larger market, they wanted 2 separate stores, one for Tandy Computers and one for Radio Shack.
Yeah, most of the computer centers had the shops in the back. That's where I used to work.
No, I have a follow-up to Nick's question here on the branding thing, because we talked about it privately on Skype, I think yesterday, the day before. And I know Steve Bjork won't like this question, but the MC10, we know the MC stands for microcolor. What the heck does a 10 signify?
How much it's worth in cents?
I think how many inches it can go underneath the door.
How many times it'll boot before it crashes?
That is a good question. Anybody know the actual answer?
Yeah, what's the 10 for?
It just sounded cool. MC.
I think it's how many units they actually sold on the first day or something.
Davey Mitchell says the 10 was the projected sales figure.
I remember the day that they shipped it in, and we opened it up. We're all looking at it, and we started taking it apart. And we said, "Well, this is great. It's only 4K." And well, how much expansion? And we found out only 16K. So like 20K. This crappy keyboard. There's no joystick. And then when we loaded a program, we thought it was broken. The cassette kept running because it didn't have a relay in it. Yeah, so it was just like, what kind of crap is this?
Just be glad they did not call it a color computer efficient. As efficient in cost.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think
I remember
the MC
Rainbow
was
called
the
it CoCo for a while, but...
Micro CoCo?
Yeah, Micro CoCo, yeah. Now, I know that we always... Now, I'm just speaking for myself. I know we always cut down the MC10, but honestly, the guys who are working on it now, they're doing some awesome stuff with it, because, they're doing things that are way, way, way beyond the capability, and anybody could possibly ever imagine that the MC10 could ever do. I mean, it's really, really awesome.
Well, the same thing could be said for the Atari 2600. I mean, that is such a lame system, 128 bytes of RAM and etc. But some people have managed to make pretty good games off of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't mean that you necessarily want to program for one.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can say the same about the CoCo, too. I mean, just in general, the CoCo's had some pretty amazing things come out lately, too, like Donkey Kong and stuff that, back in the day we would never thought possible.
Yeah. I hate to be the one that plays devil's advocate for the MC10, but when it came out, I still had friends that had the little black and white Timex Sinclair, and that was a pretty... What's that?
I was just about to bring that up. It was the Sinclair ZX80 came out, and followed by the ZX81. And if I had to have a choice between using one of those or an MC10, I'll use the MC10. They were terrible machines.
Exactly.
And we were just...
Granted, we had users groups for the Timex machine in Houston. I knew a lot of people that had them, so it was Radio Shack saying, "Oh, we can make something like that, but we'll give ours color." So for the market, it's just the market was already going away by the time the thing came out because real computers were getting cheaper.
Well, I will say that Tandy did understand about the video display generator. After all, they used it in the Color Computer 1 and 2. They brought that over, and that had the big thing against the Sinclair, because the Sinclair, if it started running a program in full speed, you got a blank screen because the microprocessor was building the display. And it was so funny on the first versions of the Sinclair or the Timex or whatever you want to call it, every time you pressed a key, the screen would blank.
Yep.
It took them a little while to fix that.
Right.
But, just they didn't know how to program for it. So, CoCo was trying to come up with competition for that. I mean, Tandy was trying to do that. But, see, my problem with the machine is it was a backward step. And when you consider that a few years later, they came out with the CoCo 3, and they were able to manufacture that for less than the CoCo 2 with twice the memory and extra capabilities. That's the thing, is we wanted them to move forward, not backwards.
Right.
Yeah. The MC10 may have done not too badly if it had been released a year or two earlier, when, as Alan mentioned, the Timexes were still popular. It would have been a huge upgrade for people with Timexes. But it came out too late in the cycle.
I remember back in high school, we had a bit of a running joke with another fellow there who had a Sinclair ZX80 computer, and we would always stir him. Whenever we looked at him, we'd blink our eyes. And he'd say, "What are you blinking for?" I says, "Well, I'm pretending I'm looking at a ZX80 and I'm just flashing in time with the screen." And we just stir him about the fact that it would do the screen blanking every time you typed or did anything. So yeah, they were terrible machines. And we were talking with Curtis yesterday. We were wondering, where did they get their 80 from? We just mentioned about the TRS-80. The 80 stood for Z80. Did they do the same for the ZX80? Because it also had a Z80 or a Z80 equivalent. But the thing is, they then released the ZX81. So we're wondering, okay, what was there? They obviously didn't follow a brand. What does the 81 signify? And we worked out version. The ZX80. Well, maybe, but the ZX80 was actually released in 1980. The ZX81 was released in 1981. So we're just wondering, did they just pick the year?
There was a talk I had with Barry Thompson over at Tandy in regards to, I kind of did talk to him about, I understand TRS-80, TRS, that stands for Tandy Radio Shack. And then the 80, we all assumed that. He goes, well, the 80s were coming up in 1977.
Yeah.
So it's also a little bit of a jump on the year. I mean, how many products get talked about the year? So, you got to remember, these are people.
Was released in 1980.
Yes, but that's still
so you could say that the TRS-80 color computer was the computer they released in 1980, not so much a Z80.
Also, in the early days of the color computer, there was stuff that I received from Tandy where they called it the TRS-90.
Oh.
And you would assume the 9's from the 6809, but I remember seeing that too. So, you got to remember, you have people, these are people, they have their great moments, they also have their faults when it comes to marketing, and they have to please the higher ups, and they'll try everything to please them.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the 90 rumor being the name too. I never knew the story behind it though.
Yeah.
And a lot of the computers had real arbitrary decisions. You remember the Commodore VIC-20 was originally going to be VIC-22 because of the width of the VIC chip, but 22 wasn't a friendly enough name, so they just rounded it down to 20, so 20 meant nothing on it.
Well, I heard also that they released the name VIC-20, but in Japan, they actually released the VIC-20 in Japan first to combat the Japanese invasion, because the Japanese were going to be bringing out all these computers that would flood the US market. So Commodore thought, well, let's release the VIC-20 in Japan first and get a jump on them. Problem is that the word VIC means something rude in Japan. So it didn't go down that well in Japan. The VIC-80 basically is what it was saying.
Yeah, and from the time back then, one of the original names, they thought they would call it Vixen and use a little fox for a logo, but Vixen in Germany meant something different and has different meanings in America for that matter.
The problems of being international.
Yeah,
that's right.
Steve Powell has an interesting theory on what the 10 and MC10 stands for, because he says there was 10 graphics modes that the MC10 could display.
As good as for any other reason.
Yeah. I remember hearing that one of the either potential names or like when we weren't sure the color computer was going to be released yet, when it was still kind of a rumor, was one of the code names or proposed names people were thinking maybe it'd be called the TRS-80C for color or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that just stuck with me. It's something I came across somewhere that, or maybe that was they're trying to think of a nickname before they decided on CoCo. But at some point in time, there was a name floating around of TRS-80C for the color computer, but it just never stuck.
Well, just remember when it comes to CoCo, that's the term that the publishers did because they wanted to shorten the name. Tandy never ever called it internally a CoCo.
Okay.
No, that's right.
I remember in '82, like in Rainbow, the letters pages were filled with people arguing what the nickname should be. Some were calling it ADC, TRS-80C, CoCo, which I believe was actually coined by David Laderquist of Chromaset, if I remember correctly. But CoCo eventually won out because it was a much friendlier name, and that's when the MC-10 was nicknamed the Poco by Rainbow when it was released in September of '83.
The poor man's CoCo, or
pocket color computers.
Oh, pocket color.
They were kind of linking it too. I guess doorstops hadn't been invented yet, so they thought it would just go in your pocket.
Now, if they came out with an MC-10 that was more like those little Sharp computers that Radio Shack sold as a TRS-80, I forget the name, pocket computer.
Right.
Yeah, PC.
If they actually came out with it like that, where it had a color LCD display, thumbs up.
Yeah. Well, we do have a when I get into some of the little things from Facebook to show, we do have something to show on the MC-10 too that is happening right now that might, add some vibrancy to it. What do we want to? I figured maybe now, since have we done with this? Have we beat this one to death?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, it's flat as a pancake. Come on.
Okay. So we'll take a quick break, but when we come back, what do we want to talk about next? Does Curtis? Did you want to do either? You said you had something you might possibly want to show, or maybe do you have a Nitrous 9 ease of use update?
I might have a little bit of both, actually.
Okay. And
but
then
Ron's got some stuff to demo too, so I'll just tag on my little hardware bit on the tail end of his.
Okay, we're gonna do a little bit of show and tell with you, Ron.
No, we don't have to. I'm just playing.
Oh, okay. I thought he was
You're
actually
gonna keep
throwing
it
stuff
short,
up for
so I didn't
demonstration there, so it was a teaser.
Yeah. I'm just doing stuff, This is a kid's game.
Playing on the CoCo. What's the game you're playing there?
Bagasaurus.
Bagasaurus?
I never heard of that.
I've heard of that one.
That's a children's workshop, like the Sesame Street people, I think.
Yeah.
Remember? Children's television workshop, where it was?
What do babysitters do? Oh, and you have to move them over to the word sit, huh?
Yeah.
That's neat. I think that's a game even I could play.
It might be one of the few you can play without the manual.
Yeah.
and you might get past level 1.
Hey,
Hey, let's not rush to conclusions here. I doubt.
Ease of use.
All right. So we will take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with a tech segment followed up by some news. So stay tuned here, people.
Hello, I am David Ladd, and you are watching CoCo TALK, the nation's leading live CoCo podcast.
G'day, mates. This is Nick Marionettes, author of such color computer titles as Donut Disaster, Rupert Rhymes, and Rockstar Pilot. And I am here today to tell you about the world's most fabulous operating system, OS 9. OS 9 and its current incarnation Nitrous 9 is the most advanced operating system ever created. And what makes it so good? Ease of use. I find OS 9 so incredibly intuitive that I haven't once cracked open the user manual, and yet I've been able to create such incredible games faster than the time it takes to sing Waltzing Matilda. Using OS 9, I expect my next game, Funstar, will be done this weekend and distributed exclusively on ROM cartridge. OS 9 forever.
Any resemblance to actual events to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
What's going on, guys? Stevie Stroh here, and I want to say thank you so much for being part of this adventure with us. It's been such a great experience in doing CoCo Talk every week, and the support we get is just amazing. And so the fact that you watch and listen is all the reward that we need. However, if you would like to become a patron of the show and offer some financial assistance towards the production and hosting costs of the show, we do have a Patreon site available for that, and you can reach that by going to our website at CoCoTALK.live and clicking on the Patreon link. But just do us a favor and watch and listen to the show.
At Gsoft, we make games for the TRS-80 color computer, TRS-80 MC10, and Dragon computers. Our basic games cover the range of genres from arcade, to text adventures, to simulations, to 3D dungeon crawls. This is our latest puzzle game from Japan, Fruit Panic. So come on and drop by our website and download our latest games.
All right, and we are back. We are back with CoCo Talk, episode 45. So we have talked about the CoCo Crew Podcast this month. We have asked the question, why did Tandy do that? And if you think that we've squeezed in as much content as we can possibly squeeze into this train wreck, we have got more in store for you. And by the way, I want to say hi to the 26 people who are watching us live right now. We are breaking records here. We are trying to raise money, too, for Timmy so he can get a new wheelchair. And so far, it is coming along swimmingly here. So yeah, we've got a tech segment here with Curtis Boyle. He's going to do a little show and tell. But before we do that, I want to play a little intro graphic here because this is a professionally produced show. So check this out.
It's time for TechTALK with David Ladd and Curtis Boyle. Take it away, tech dudes.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
I'm stunned speechless. I won't be able to speak now.
Beautiful 1980s technology.
I think 80s is
for the win. For the win.
For the win. So, by the way, I just need to say that we have His Majesty, Lord Curtis Boyle, as recently heard on the CoCo Crew Podcast interview, is with us today. Thank you, Your Eminence, for being here.
Yes, that's worse for last, as I said. Apparently on this show, too, because this is near the end, I guess. Okay, so my little demonstration here today is going to be showing the Glenside IDE interface board, which was a pretty popular IDE hard drive solution back in, I guess, what would be the 90s. So this is what the board looks like.
Okay.
Fairly simple. So that your ID hard drive just connects on the back here. And then you have a jumper here. You can address it to FF50 or 70. So if you wanted to mix it with another hard drive, say a Birkenberg or something, you could just move it so that you could actually have both plugged in your system at once. Mine does not have the optional extra connectors here for adding extra cards, but you could, kind of almost a mini multi-pack built into it type thing. But it enabled us to use a lot of the cheap ID drives after the old MFM and RLLs kind of started, not being manufactured or hard to get. And then there was some extended drivers for Nitrous 9. We actually started getting it to handle some of the larger size drives because OS 9 itself can natively handle up to a 4 gig drive with cluster sizes. And then we actually ended up adding in some segmentation where you could do 4 gig segments. And I know I used this specific controller when I was writing that driver, and I hooked up a 20 gig, I think, Seagate, and I made 5 virtual descriptors pointing to each of the 4 chunks, and you could actually, basically have 5 hard drives as far as the CoCo was concerned off one physical drive with 20 gig of actual storage you could use. I haven't filled that yet, but...
So you're not using the word partition, though, because it sounds to me like what we would consider to be a partition, but not quite?
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to get all fancy and PC-like, but...
Logical descriptor.
This is Tech Talk, not Newbie Talk.
That's cool. Now, what's the long part of that card? Is that the part that goes in the CoCo? Because it looks like there's a long edge sticking out on one side there.
The reason they did that is if you are going to add these connectors... Basically, you would solder the extra connectors here for plugging in other cartridges, like your floppy controller or whatever else. They wanted enough room, so when you plugged it into the side of the CoCo, you'd have enough room coming out to actually plug in these things without it trying to jam against the case, and maybe you have to take the top of the case off to even get it to fit. Now, if you don't have anything on like this, it's a little bit awkward because it's kind of just dangling loose in space.
Okay.
I usually had it in my multi-pack because I was developing it along with some of my older controllers too. So, and I think if I remember a version of this or a derivative of it, I think actually supported compact flash cards too, if I remember correctly. David might remember better than I do.
Yes, that would be Mark Marlette's Cloud9's Super IDE.
Okay, which is kind of the sequel to this one.
Yeah, it had a compact flash slot. It still had the IDE slot. It had flash memory on it for storing your ROM images for your different disk basic versions. And a real-time clock if you so desired to buy a version that had the real-time clock.
Very cool. Now, because this is IDE, would it support like a master-slave on it? If if you had
you could do both drives.
You could do the like the split cable. And what do you got here? Because that's okay.
That's the Cloud9 sequel.
Okay, Super ID interface. That looks like a standard like FD500 or 501 controller case there.
It is an official Radio Shack cartridge case.
Yep, and on the side is the slot for the compact flash plug-in, and then it had the regular IDE connector on this end.
Okay, so it would do both.
Oh, everybody's got one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can see how long the connector comes out here with the case. And if you did want to use the two vertical ones, you'd have to leave the top of the case off, obviously.
I'm only using mine these days for the real-time clock.
Shameless plug for John Strong. He does make a nice printed case for the Glenside IDEs.
Yeah, I don't use it anymore, though. I mean, with the STC, it's kind of been, supplanted completely at this point.
Yeah.
Well, there's also Super Driver with Nitrous 9 where you could, I haven't done it myself, but where you could use the Super IDE or the Glenside IDE for using CD-ROM drives or DVDs.
Yep, and there was a SCSI CD-ROM drive. I think Chris Hawks did too.
Very cool.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to show there because not too many people have seen the Glenside IDE. This was actually a club project. The Glenside Color Computer Club that sponsors CoCo Fest actually did this as a club project.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people designed it and then got them made and populated the chips and sold them and everything else. So.
Do you know who some of the people are that did work on that? Maybe some names we'd recognize.
I know Carl Boll was helping quite a bit with the assembly, but I'm trying to remember who did the actual original design. Alan, do you remember? Or David?
Yeah,
I used
not
to
me.
I know I talked to him a lot when I was developing the second version of the drivers because the original drivers I think were done by Jim Hathaway, and that was only using this half of every sector because it's 5 12-byte sectors on the PC IDE style drives, and it was 256 on the CoCo. So the original one just took half the sector and threw the other half away, which I thought was a tremendous waste. So I rewrote the driver to handle the full 5 12-byte sectors, and then I did the partitioning additions there too. So,
what about any logical descriptors? Did you work on those too?
Yep, I had sample ones on there. I even wrote a little Basic 09 program to create the descriptors for you. So,
neat, very neat. I've heard about it. I've never seen it, so that was a first for me. Seeing the Glenside IDE, very cool. It's amazing that some of these new technology, some of these devices to add new technologies. Those new technologies are now already dead technologies, like IDE, Yeah,
because we went through the SASE stuff, like the original Tandy controller and some of the really old ones. I think the Disto did that too. And then we went to the MFM RLL, like the Burke and Burke, and SCSI, of which there were several, like Canton and a few others. Mm-hmm. And then IDE was the next big thing after that for about 10 years because you couldn't get the cheaper, older drives anymore. And you can get much bigger sizes with this too. And now, of course, now with SD cards.
Like a
and the Super IDE with the compact flash card, when it came out and I bought mine at the fest, we ran down the street to like a Walgreens or something, and they still sold compact flash cards in the store. But within a few years, you just had to mail order them because everybody had moved on to, different type of memory cards for the cameras and stuff. So we've kind of always been living in the past with the color computer. It's always a PS2 mouse or a compact flash. It's really hard to keep up with a 30-year-old computer, apparently.
Yeah. And even
always
now,
on the trailing edge.
Right, and nothing against the CoCo VGA project. It's a great project, but VGA by itself is somewhat of a soon-to-be obsolete connection for monitors. Most of the monitors now are most modern TVs don't have VGA anymore, and even the computer monitors now are going more HDMI. It's good to have these things, but.
I think it's actually tied to price point. Like where I work, we had a product that has the RS-232 serial interface, and even when laptops started dropping 232, we still had a 232 product and just bought a cheap over-the-counter adapter because the price point for putting USB in our product was pretty expensive. It wasn't until 2009 that there was a reasonable, item to put in there.
Right,
and same thing here. It's like, by the time, it comes along with serial ATA, well, then the IDE stuff has dropped so cheap, you can now make a reasonably priced adapter.
Right.
So, trailing technology, usually gets really inexpensive.
No truer words have ever been spoken. Hey, Ron, I like that view of your swimming pool in the backyard there. You look like you're living in an oasis, my friend.
Yeah, we are. Basically, I think so.
An oasis in the desert.
Yeah.
Looks nice.
Gonna be probably near 80 today.
Oh, what a shame. Bill Noble would be just disappointed to hear that. All right, good tech segment. What else we got to go on here today? Does anybody else have another segment, or are we ready to look at some of the news from around Facebook?
Well, I was going to add one more thing for the Super IDE, since Alan was commenting on the compact flash. You can get compact flash SD card adapters. And that's actually what I'm using in my Super IDE now, since my SD card or compact flash card died a while back. So
and then during the days of the IDE, I never had an IDE hard drive. I just used it for compact flash, and it became the most convenient hard drive I ever had. So I picked up one of these adapters from Cloud9 that plugged into the IDE port, and then gave me a second compact flash. I just had to power it off of a floppy drive somewhere. So I was able to have 2 compact flash hard drives and do backup. So that was my number one hard drive system until I got CoCo SDC.
Wow.
Cool.
So we can adapt one dead technology to a less dead technology.
Celebrating obsolescence 1 year at a time.
Or the win.
What I want to do now is I want to convert a PS2 to USB and then get a USB to PS2 adapter.
I forgot the Bluetooth in there.
No, we're trailing edge. It has to be a serial to PS2 adapter is what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we're finally.
Idea, Curtis.
I'm glad we're finally getting the color computers online with parts that don't support modern encryption and all the VP virtual networks on the Wi-Fi base stations, and we can't have a web browser because every web page is 3 gigabytes in size. But at least we're getting close.
We're getting Telnet.
Actually, what I want to see happen is now that the CoCos are starting to get in the web, I want to see all the hackers and like North Korean stuff try to attack a CoCo and then try to figure out what the heck is going on.
Can I show you guys CoCo TV?
Yes.
Can you see it good?
Yeah. So this is on Roku. This is Roger Taylor, right, from CoCo on a Chip. He has a channel called CoCo TV. Okay. And does it come up with a menu, or does it automatically start showing things? Okay, it's a little bit blurry, a little hard to see.
It's a little blown out. I don't know if you can adjust that or not.
Okay, here it goes.
Okay, let's see.
So this is anybody who has Roku, which is a TV streaming device. So you can buy it as a box, or you can. Some TVs have it built into the smart TVs. Okay, so PenFest 2000 videos are on there. Some CoCo Fest videos are on there. New CoCo. Okay, Forest of Doom. New CoCo Games. Yeah, we can't see it all too clearly, but it's okay.
Timberman.
When is the MC10 channel starting?
Demos and showcase.
Down below.
So let me ask, is there a way to look at one of these and know, okay, there's the Popstar, there's the OS9 commercial, right? OS9 forever. Is there a way to click on one of these and know how many people have seen it on Roku? Like, do you get view counts on it?
I do not know.
No, there's no view count.
The only people that get that are the people that actually put out the the channel.
So that would be Roger. Yeah.
The interface works pretty quick.
Yeah, no, I'd say so.
And then they have some, they show the demos of CoCo 3 demo, for instance.
So you just
one thing, since you mentioned Roger, I'm hoping he puts up some of his experimental videos. He powered up one of these Wi-Fi chips off of a battery from a cell phone, and it's been running over 26 hours so far. These things are apparently very low power.
Interesting. Yeah, it's hard for us to see what it says, Ron. It's kind of like washed out with the colors, but we can see you moving stuff around though.
It's cool to see. He's got his CoCo on he gave away a $25 one, and CoCo on a chip Christmas Day drawing.
Yeah, that's neat. I remember him posting that in Facebook.
Yeah.
What happened? Loading.
My internet's crappy, so it's probably loading.
Oh, because are you in the garage now?
Yeah, I've been out here. Yeah. Anyway,
you need to run an Ethernet cable out there, sir.
Yeah.
Or beamform a Wi-Fi signal or something.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm dying to see it. I'm just too cheap to buy a Roku box for that one thing, But one of these days I'll get a chance to see it. Radio Shack commercials. You got to love the old commercials. Those are great. So Grant Leighty says he's going to join us shortly, and he says he thinks that that Glenside is having a meeting about credit cards right now. So that will be that'd be interesting to hear the outcome of that.
Hope they get it working, because then I'll buy more stuff.
Yeah,
that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Might go broke.
Exactly.
All right, bidding against Alan.
We will take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to look at some things that have been posted on Facebook this week. We'll talk about some of the latest things to discuss. Okay, so Nick Marotta says Roku on a stick is like $40.
Yeah, 36.
Yeah, I know it's not that expensive, but again, it's something I have no need for other than seeing CoCo TV. So unless it's like $5, I'm not interested in spending.
It has a ton of things you can watch on there. I mean, channels and channels and channels and some local stuff for all over the country.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's also a good Netflix streamer.
True. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back in just a second here, folks. So enjoy these words from our sponsors. What's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. Gameplay goodness.
As you can see, color computers. CoCoTALK, Stevie Stroh. What can you ask for? This is the best.
Gameplay goodness. Gameplay goodness. All right, people. Gameplay goodness. Thank you so much. Gameplay goodness. Yeah. Gameplay goodness.
Are you ready for this?
Gameplay goodness. Yeah. Gameplay goodness.
Are you ready for this?
Gameplay goodness. Yeah. Gameplay goodness. Gameplay goodness.
This is how we like to do it.
Gameplay goodness. All right, people. Gameplay goodness. Gameplay goodness. Gameplay goodness. Gameplay goodness. Yeah.
Drop it low.
Gameplay goodness. All right, people. Gameplay goodness.
To the flow.
Gameplay goodness. Yeah. Gameplay goodness. Yeah. That's
can you catch all the latest news and information about the Tandy color computer and compatibles? Oh yeah, I'm talking about the CoCo Crew Podcast. Dig it each month. Join John, Neil, and Mike as they lay down the latest news and information about the Radio Shack Tandy color computer and compatibles. Groove to interviews, tech segments, and discussions all about the Radio Shack Tandy color computer. Strut your fine self over to www.cococrew.org and start listening today. The CoCo Crew Podcast. Keeping it CoCo, dig?
All right, well, we are back for CoCo Talk episode 45. Still with us on the call, we've got Ron Delvaux, David Ladd, Mark Overholser, Curtis Boyle, Richard Lorbieski, Alan Huffman, Steve Bjork, Jason the CoCoMan, and Nick Marentes. And we are now going to take a look at some news from around the world, or at least as posted on Facebook. And I should probably come up with a cool little infographic and song. Alan Huffman, you have been tasked with coming up with a news a news jingle now. So
you give me a title, I'll give you a tune.
So I have gone through and just saved a handful of things that have been posted on the Color Computer. Blah blah blah. What are we talking about? Yes, the Color Computer Facebook group this week. And so one of the ones that was posted was by Joel Ewe, or I'm not even sure how to pronounce his name.
That's pretty
Ewe?
close.
Okay. Yeah. So he is at what is the ICT Game Jam in Wichita State University. Are you familiar with that? But it looks like it's
game programming contest or something.
Okay, so it's a game programming contest. He's brought a CoCo. Here's even got a little sticker here. So the ICT Game Jam, and he says, "I'm one of the only people here programming on an 8-bit machine." So he's got his CoCo 3 here, and he is participating in the Game Jam right now. So that's kind of cool to see the CoCo 3 out there in the wild.
Yeah, he's using Basic 09 if you look at the screen close.
Ah, let's go back. Is that what that is? Basic 09? Okay, it's kind of hard to tell from the glare. Okay. Yeah, and there was a really good article that I just read too. I think it was James Jones who was talking in favor of Basic 09, the structured language versus, line numbers and things like that. So it was kind of cool to read that piece there. So that's cool to see the CoCo 3 being represented. Another nice update here. We've talked about this for a bit now, but our good friend Hugo Defort is working on a library of pop-up boxes and buttons and all the things that you need to develop software, because none of these things are built in. Of course, some could argue if you just used OS 9, you'd have all these things there. But there is something cool about just making your own routines and making your own libraries. He did mention that it's still a little slow. It's not been double buffered yet, but he is working on optimizing it. So it's still a work in progress, but he's got a calculator there.
It actually works too.
Yeah, it does math.
Actually does some adding.
Oh. No, there he goes. So neat. So this would be something that could be added to just about any game. It's basically creating a GUI, right? And so this could then be used to manage a whole bunch of things.
That's great, because all my basic games are severely calculator lacking.
I just wanted to see him do a division by 0. See what the calculator does.
Yeah, but I would have to say this looks pretty good. This is I just recall, a lot of the as this was being worked on, all the questions he was asking about fonts and things like that. So you can see he's got all different types of fonts here, mixed case, and all kinds of neat stuff, right?
Should mention too, he is starting to do the optimization, and Simon's helping him with that.
Okay.
Oh no, self-modifying code.
So
Self-modifying calculator changes the results every time you run it.
Something Steve Bjork will be happy to see. But this is Brendan Donaghy's CoCo VGA project now being plugged into an MC10. So we now see the MC10 showing up on a VGA display. And that's pretty cool.
Waste.
Well, Steve, I was going to ask you actually about this because, I mean, the CoCo VGA project also gives you a 64 by 32 text screen, and he's also going to be adding user-definable fonts. Would that improve the MC10 enough to make it worth your while?
It's still an MC10.
Well, one of the things that Ed Snyder was going to say, was chiming in. Ed Snyder's like, well, now we need to add some video RAM to this too. Now, if you added more video RAM to this, now you've overcome one of the limitations of the MC10 by not being able to get to the better graphics modes.
Yep, true.
Well, see, one project I worked on, played with quite a bit before even the CoCo came out, was something called the Electric Crayon, which used a 6802 and a 6847. But they did actually have 16K of RAM in there.
So you could actually access all the modes for the PDG?
Yeah, you could fill up the modes, and what it was designed to do is plug into a printer port, like of a TRS-80 Model 1, and you could print the control strings to it, and it would display the text. And then we got the CoCo 2, and that was so much better, and they were developing the deluxe color computer, and then they decided to take a big step back to the MC10, which wasn't even as good as that damn Electric Crayon that came out in 1978.
But you're not bitter.
No, not at all.
But I got to say...
One thing
go ahead, Alan.
Interesting to mention here is we're getting like programmable fonts on that VGA board that came out last year, and the ability to do like 64 columns. And Roger Taylor has been putting in the ability to load in custom fonts for the hardware text modes on the virtual color computer. And I'm hoping that he will add support that mirrors the things that these add-on boards are doing, so it'll give another platform for writing software that behaves the same way. So we might actually get to see loadable fonts on this FPGA project that mirrors how it's actually done on real hardware, which would be fun.
Well, that would actually help because a lot of the software that's out there that you're, like the, we've had all sorts of problems with the MIME stuff and like that, clicking audio, things like that. It would be kind of nice to get around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of these emulated CoCos trying to emulate more actual real hardware, so things that are done on them can actually still be used on a real machine. So that's a big plus. And it's really interesting to see a Color Computer 3 running with the IBM PC font with all the special extended characters. That's it's pretty interesting. That's something I wish we could do with a real gimme, and maybe that could be something added to those gimme replacement projects to kind of keep the capabilities in sync.
Who's going to make a replacement 6809 or 6309 for the MC10? I mean, that'd be the killer app there, along with the VGA and the extra memory and all that.
Yeah, but you still only have 20K of RAM.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, that's been addressed. There's a 128K extender for it. I think the one downside to even if you add CoCo graphics to the MC10, now it becomes a CoCo of brain damage, right? Because it doesn't even have the full 6809. So you address one issue, but you haven't addressed the other.
Well, the other big thing is that there's no joysticks.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're going to play games, that little tiny chiclet keyboard, or it's kind of rubbery chiclet keyboard, is pretty difficult to play some games on.
I still remember somebody hacking an MC10 so that you could have an Atari joystick work through the keyboard.
Yeah, that'd work.
There was an MC10 users group back in the 80s. A buddy of mine was in it, and they had a floppy drive for it as well.
Such a waste.
Ed could make his CoCo PSG for the MC10, and then it'd have 2 Atari sticks plus flash and sound.
By the way, John Linville says, if anyone has an electric crayon for sale, I would really like to have it. So I think this looks good, though. It looks really clean. And one of the problems you have when your only output is RF, and it's actually becoming more challenging to get RF input on some of the newer TVs that don't have analog capabilities. VGA is a compromise between that, but it's neat. I like it. It looks good, and that the CoCo VGA project is a really good project that has really come a long way. I thought this picture here was pretty neat here too. So Boise Pete has just posted a tower of CoCos here, and so
yeah, 2s and 3s.
It's just like wow.
Now he's bringing the old machines back to life.
Yeah, I mean,
like he was asking for suggestions of what he could do with this big rack of CoCos, and somebody suggested Bitcoin mining.
The cost and power.
Plus, you get one coin about every 5,000 years, I think, using CoCos. So.
Here's Hugo says, combine all the outputs to get 1280 by 750 TV output in 16 colors. Then build an adapter that sends joystick info to all 12 computers. Sync the computers using external pulse and a serial port, and have a game that can be played across all machines. That sounds like a feasible project. Peter Satinsky says, it looks like a dozen CoCos fresh out of the oven. Like a baker's rack.
Baker's dozen.
Yeah, Jim Cox said Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
William Thompson says, dude, that's like almost a megabyte. Crazy. Who would need more than that? No, that's cool. That's a cool picture. So picture says 1,000 words. Now, this was kind of neat here. This was one of the things that we did last night on our little After Dark thing. But Alan Huffman had basically used his iPad to telnet into his CoCo over his AT&T Wi-Fi connection. And then he opened it up, and Bill Noble was connecting, and a handful of people were connecting in. So I think things like this are just kind of cool. It's like, well, why are you doing it? Well, because we can, and why not? So
BecauseWeCan.com.
What's
Just
that?
Please. Go ahead, Alan.
BecauseWeCan.com. I registered that basically to post responses to people in Stack Exchange when somebody asks a question and somebody says, why would you want to do that? Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's why would you want to do that.com. That's the one. I know I bought something.
I was upset because when I got in, I couldn't play Global Thermonuclear War, so...
Greetings, Professor Falcon.
I was going to say, Alan, does the hardware support multiple ports? Like if you set up an OS 9 BBS, could you actually have multiple users come in and chat with each other and the whole bit?
Yes, you can. And that's what the little basic programs the Commodore guys wrote do. That's how they do FTP and IRC and all that. And it gives you the data and tells you what socket it's on. You just have to write a little parser. They do it in BASIC with a little assembly code to speed up the serial I/O. So that's the next project I'm going to be working on this next week or so, is to try to get onto the IRC CoCo chat channel from an actual CoCo without a PC in the mix.
Neat,
cool.
neat, yes.
Because I know the output.
One of the other programs that they have is a program that goes and retrieves a disk image for the Commodore from the Commodore emulator sites, and then writes it out to a real floppy or their whatever emulated floppy hardware they use. So they can go onto their Commodore 64, type in the path to what they want to get. It downloads the disk image, and then they can run it.
Wow,
that would be cool. I was going to suggest, like the AlphaSoft BBS by Keith Alfonso actually has. We used to use it at work because we got permission from Keith. We modified it, but when we had our 8-terminal system running, he had some chat programs with shared memory under OS 9 that you could actually have all 8 people plus whoever's locally on the CoCo literally chatting simultaneously, like a real live, CB chat style conference, almost like an RC. And that software already exists and is ready to go. So if you wanted to try that, I can send you some copies of that stuff if you don't have it already.
Oh, I have it. I started out with Alpha Software before I went to Scott Greppentag's STGNet, which was very similar but did even more.
Cool.
So yeah, there'll be something like that, and hopefully we can have a simple little internet multiplayer game at the CoCo Fest and things like that.
That would be neat.
The biggest change I see in how you're doing this stuff compared to the old days when we used to get online is you didn't have somebody yelling at you, Get off so I can use the phone.
Exactly.
I cheated. I bought my own phone line even as a teenager.
Oh yeah,
my
I did
paper
too.
was for.
I was still. I don't even think I had worked at Radio Shack yet, but I had bought a Radio Shack phone, and for my first phone, so I can get on bulletin boards and stuff. And I remember the first time it rang, it freaked me out because I didn't even know what the hell the phone ringing sound was going to sound like. I'm like, what is this noise in my room? I'm like looking around for the source of the noise, and it was the phone company calling me to tell me that my phone line had been activated. So it was a cream-colored. Touch-tone phone. It wasn't the rounded handled ones, but the kind of like singular piece, kind of oval shaped handheld piece. Yeah, good times.
Yeah, I got a question for whoever can answer it. Back in the day, did they ever try and make it so you can use two modems?
Oh yeah, that's what we're just talking about.
Did it ever work?
Multi-user. Oh yeah.
Just have to have multiple serial ports on the machine, right?
Yeah, multiple serial ports, and then an operating system that can handle both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I first started getting online, it was acoustic modem time at 110 baud. And I had a buddy in the computer lab that was able to whistle so well, he could actually get it to type out letters on the terminal.
Oh, wow.
That's like Captain Crunch with his phone freaking where he could whistle the tones to do the free long-distance calls.
That's a gift.
The oldest memory I have of computing is in school, 1968. I went into a room at our high school, and they had a IBM Selectric with the little round ball on it, and that was the terminal, and you could play Hangman on it, and it was hooked up to some computer at the headquarters somewhere, and it was that was a computer. Pretty weird.
Yeah, the time-sharing mainframes and minis back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, the CoCo supported multi-user BBSs in a multitude of flavors. And AlphaSoft, I mean, to go along with their BBS, which was set up for multi-user, you just had to get multiple phone lines. Also sold the COM4 board, which was 4 serial ports based on the RS-32 pack in one cartridge. So one slot in your multi-pack, you had 4 ports going on. You could mix terminals or modems, whatever you wanted. We had one of those at work, too.
Yeah. And now you can do a multiple user CoCo. Don't have to use any phone lines. It comes on in, works just great. People calling in don't have to use a phone line.
Yep.
Yeah, times have definitely changed.
Who's taking my Netflix bandwidth?
Well, that's the thing is with it being the CoCo, there's no bandwidth it's affecting.
Right. So what's that one website? Vintage is the new old. We need to come up with a phrase now for modems. Modems is the new. Modems is the new blank.
Actually, Vintage is the new old. I should mention that because that's I think where James Jones is doing his Basic 09 series. But isn't Alan also doing his optimized Basic Disk Extended Basic series on that?
Yeah, but the problem with that is I go out and do all these wonderful steps to make something be incrementally faster, and then James writes an article that goes, or in Basic 09, it's 527 times faster.
Well, he's also complaining that you were doing all these. He wasn't complaining to you specifically, but he was saying that, yeah, you can optimize Basic and try to make it look like it's structured if you put extra colons in front of the line, kind of hinting at your series.
Yeah, we've been having some discussions back and forth. He's given me some more things to write about, which I know that means he will then go and present the way Basic 09 does it. And another article I'm going to be writing is my first commercial program sold under Subetha software was a banner printing program that looked like it was machine language, but it was just basic, and you'd load them and exec it and stuff. But I did a bunch of tricks. And when we quickly realized we could sell a ton more of them if it supported OS 9, I converted it over in Basic 09. So I'm going to try to pull out the source code to both of them and write a little article that shows how I took something written for Basic and converted it to Basic 09 to look at how similar and different the code is. It'll be great. I haven't looked at that code since 1990, so it should be fun.
I'll be like a whole new person looking at it.
Hey, Bruce Moore will love to hear that one.
Yeah, and Nick Marentes too, because he's kind of got some curiosity about Basic 09, and that would be a good way to show the comparison between the two.
Right.
Yeah, especially nowadays when you could write it all with a modern full text editor and copy and paste and move things around and then just send it over and run it on the CoCo.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need to acknowledge Grant Leighty, who's been here for a little bit too. Grant's called in. Hey, Grant, welcome to CoCo Talk.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing today?
Good. You've been very silently letting this pontification train just roll off the rails here, but glad you could finally make it. Grant, you mentioned that something about how Glenside might be actually doing something with meeting up to discuss credit cards.
Yeah, I just noticed on my phone on my Hangout call that there was a update just a few minutes ago before I sent the text out to you on your YouTube channel that they're having a meeting about credit cards right now.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So hopefully we'll have an update about that maybe later this evening.
Neat. Okay, and while I wasn't watching the live chat, Alexander Wallace said, hello all. What would be the best choice to do CoCo 3 to VGA? Well, the Cloud9 has a board. Richard Lorbieski has a CoCo 3 to SCART, which can be converted to HDMI.
I think Cloud9's currently out of stock, too, if I remember, because he was going to do a modification of the board, which hopefully will be out for the fest.
Okay. Solstice says, I got to go. See you all soon. Take care, Solstice. And then Bruce Moore says he would love that article, Alan, if you ever get to the point where you can talk about the difference between CoCo Basic and Basic 09.
Hey, Curtis, what's the baud rate number for 300 baud with X mode?
One or two, isn't it?
I don't know. I can't even find the manual. Okay, you may continue with the show.
I'll find out and I'll let you know here.
Isn't it T1?
All right, well, we're going to go back to some more things, little snippets I pulled from Facebook here. So this I thought was neat. So Lee Perkins posted that I finally got my CoCo SDC today. A friend printed a case for me. It's met and exceeded my expectations. He's running Dungeons of Daggorath with the disk patch, which I can now Z-save to the disk image on my SD. Creating new disk images on the SD card and copying from DriveWire to SD all from the CoCo is a cinch. You got Robot Odyssey, Sinistar, King's Quest, and a lot more loading and working great. I haven't gotten to Flash functionality yet, but I will. Excellent product, Ed Snyder, and thanks for your effort you've put into it. Highly recommend the CoCo SDC for anyone with a CoCo, right? So we have... We've got the box as it was received. We got the bubble wrap. Here it is in its nice anti-static bag. Here is, as you see, the CoCo SDC. Now, this is a similar case. This is not the John Strong case, but there are a few other people who are making 3D printed cases as well for the CoCo SDC. This is the one that says Tandy on the front of it. And here we go. We are fired up with this SDC DOS 1.5. And very cool. Yeah, so I mean, if you had to pick a Hall of Fame for products, modern CoCo products, the CoCo SDC, which we should point out that it's Darren Atkins who created this, and is it Atkins or Atkinson? Yeah. Darren Atkinson is who created this, and Ed Snyder is the one who is producing them, but Ed did not design it. Now here's a video from Ron Delvaux.
Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk.
He posted this.
And today, I thought we would talk about a new way I've got to...
So this is Dragon 32 disk loading using a Tandy CoCo disk cart. So what was he doing here, Ron, when you posted this? He's going to play a WAV file to load into the Dragon?
Well, he has a little pad there that he just loads WAV files in, but he has a disk controller that he took and put a ROM in, and you can directly use the controller right in Dragon and hook it up to a disk and use it.
Okay.
And it explains how he did it.
Okay, well it's 30 minutes, so we probably won't play the whole thing.
Dragon like that.
Looks like he's got a list of different recordings there, WAV files.
So, you can skip through it.
Where is there a good part I should skip through to get to the end? Or
toward the end is when he talks about his Dragon CoCo cartridge.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to post a link to this in the YouTube chat. So if anybody's watching, they can see that. So he's got a CoCo cartridge on here. There's Mr. Dig. Okay, I'm not sure where I'll be looking, what part I should be finding that in, but maybe people can just watch that on their own when they want to see it, because that's, we got 33 minutes there. But that's pretty neat, though, that you can load cassette things through. What is the name of that product for the Dragon that it's kind of like our CoCo SDC, but it also loads cassette images and everything else? Is that the one he's talking about here, the CoCo Discard, or is there a different name for it?
That's the Moo.
The Moo. How do you spell that?
I think it's MOO.
MOO.
That's what's his name from Switzerland? Tormod?
Tormod? Okay.
I believe so.
MOOH, David Ladd says. Okay.
Okay.
So we had Paul Thayer on last night. Paul Thayer's been on a bit. So you know Paul Thayer's most recent game is called Timberman. And this is a new program he's working on. So this is kind of the framework for a game. And so here you would see, some of the stuff on the side where you would see, like, if you had some extra weapons or power-ups, here's like your health and ammo gauge, here's your score. And then this dark space here would be the gameplay window, right? So his current thing that he's working on, he's teasing some images with us of some of the tiles and some of the characters he's working on. So that looks pretty cool. And he did talk to us about it. I don't remember if it was after dark or when he was talking about this. So he did give us a little bit of the idea behind it. Now, this was kind of an interesting discussion where we got into what high-res joystick is better. I don't remember all the details, and I'm not qualified to speak intelligently about most things. But anybody want to take this one and talk about some of these high-res offerings and why this discussion started to happen on this?
Well, the original Tandy high-res joystick interface was designed by Steve Bjork, who can probably give you a lot more in the history on that than I could. But it was basically to give the high-resolution mice coordinates so that when you were running on the CoCo 3 graphics mode, you could actually address pixel by pixel with the mouse instead of it jumping like 8 at a time. And the people that did the original CoCoMax had designed a cartridge to do 8-bit joystick reads for the mouse on the CoCo 1 and 2 to give us a 256 by 192 resolution. And they also use it as a form of hardware protection to make sure you had that particular piece to be able to run the software. And so when they did CoCoMax 3, they kind of did the same thing, and they made a derivative, I guess you would call it, Steve. I don't know if that's the right term.
They actually bought high-res joystick interfaces and modified them.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it was slightly incompatible versions, and then that's a switchable one that actually lets you switch between the two modes.
Right. What it was is on my design, it allowed both joystick buttons to go through, but I needed some sort of trigger for the voltage pump on the interface, so I used the cassette to trigger that. What they did is they effectively took the line that was coming from the cassette and hooked it up to button number 2 coming from the CoCo.
Oh, so it just needed one plug, but you lost your second button.
One, and so what they would do is they would internally press on the PDA, or excuse me, the parallel interface chip. They would send a logical 0. Now, I have to admit, you really can't be using the keyboard when it's trying to read the joystick.
Yeah. Because
you'll get spurious problems. It's not that good for the CoCo. But yeah, I mean, it does work, and like that. Now, I was talking to a few people last night in our usual, or the other night, in our usual chat on Discord, and I may actually try and come up with some circuit boards so we can make some new high-res joystick interfaces.
Cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a really small board. There's one chip inside there, LM3900. You can get those things really dirt cheap.
Have you fiddled in much with the software algorithm that John Kowalski and Nick Marentes did? The one that does it complete through software?
Well, I did come out with something that was in Rainbow Magazine that was had to do with the mouse, and one of the options in the mouse was to give you software for talking to the high-res joystick.
Yeah, I remember that because you actually published it before the CoCo 3 was out, if I remember correctly. So people
everybody kept on saying, "What the heck is a high-res joystick interface?" Yeah, even back then I was into self-promotion.
I just wanted to mention, like, the routine that Saw came on, and Nick, you can probably explain this better than I could. I think it has to do with the timing of the bleeding of the caps and stuff like that, so that you can actually basically do in software completely with no hardware at all, and get the high resolution readings.
Sorry, I missed that.
I'm just wondering, could you give an explanation of how the high-res joystick routines that Sock and you came up with, and now Eric's ported into ColorMax Deluxe, about how that works, because it's totally software-based.
That's right. Well, basically, when the DAC changes values, when you change between one value to another, there is a degree of capacitance in the circuitry. So the voltage doesn't actually go from one DAC value to another instantly. It actually has a slight ramp. It's a very quick, very short, but the idea is if you write software that can sample the DAC port fast enough, you can actually get a reading during that ramp from one voltage to another to get extra values in between, and that's how you increase the resolution of the joysticks. And that was all Softmaster's doing. He came up with the idea, and when he told me about it, I just said, well, we should actually follow this up and make something of it. And I started coding it, and then he'd give me ideas, and lo and behold, we had a high-res joystick completely under software working, of which a few people have picked up on, and I think John Strong has included a high-res software driver in one of his games.
Yep, Bomb Squad.
Eric Crickflow or whatever has the ColorMax person. He's actually got a version of ColorMax Deluxe patch to use it, so you don't need a high-res interface. And it seems to work just as good as a high-res interface. If anything, I think it's a bit faster as well. So it's as I promoted it, it's the high-res interface we always had.
Yeah, my only concern with that technology, and I've seen it used, is there can be a little bit of jitter.
Yeah,
and my system can have jitter too, but I recommend the software design that you use the V-blank to trigger the reading off the joystick interface. And the reason why you do that is these old CRT monitors, they made quite a bit of frequency noise that would affect things such as the value coming out of the joystick. And by you reading it at the same noise level, because the CRT goes through a loop that's based on 60 times a second, by reading it at the same moment of the noise, you removed a lot of the jitter.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly reading the joystick to see where that change comes in, to get those extra bits, we'll just call it extra bits, I don't see how you can synchronize with the monitor.
No. Is there much jitter? I haven't noticed much jitter with the software routine at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because via software, it actually does provide some degree of software softening, you could say, that would eliminate a lot of that jitter.
Yeah. Well, your way of doing it too is based on the fact that they're added at a capacitor at some point in the production of the CoCo's life to the joystick to help remove the jitter. And then I explained to them that the jitter was coming from the noise in the environment, not the noise on the joystick per se. And the RF shielding helped a lot. Not having the monitor sitting on top of the CoCo helps with the 60 hertz jitter.
Yeah. And why did Tandy do this? Just a quick flashback. Why didn't Tandy pursue a serial port based mouse?
The first version of the high-res joystick interface, or actually it was a mouse interface, was the a design that I came up that, see, at that time there was no serial mice. All you had is mice that sent tracking information similar to a trackball. Basically, you got pulses coming in, and based on which pulse came in before the other, that meant you're either going left or right or up or down. and you had to read that. Well, my design for doing that meant that the interface would have been about $100.
Wow.
And they said, I don't think we can you design anything cheaper?
That's like the battle cry for Tandy.
And so I designed them something that would cost them $2.50 to make.
Right.
That's a significant cost savings over $100. 98% reduction.
When I say $100, I meant the final product.
Oh, the retail price would
have been $100.
Okay, right.
Yeah, but it just it also kind of gives you an idea of the markup that Tandy does. It costs $2.50 to build the interface, but they sold it for $10.
That's 80% markup.
Yeah. But see, hardware, you cannot be successful selling hardware unless you're making 25% markup, which is the hardware costs 25% of the retail price. So 75% is your profit level.
You see, if it was going to be $100 for the original design, they could have just given a free MC10 and have that as a little microcontroller just to drive the box. And they would have finally had a use for it.
Yep.
Disney Saints fan says, if you come out with a new high-res interface, I am interested. So there you go. It's your first customer.
My plan is I'm going to come out with just the circuit board. And then it is up to the person to build it or in the community to build it for those folks. So I'll design it. I'll come up with the circuit board. I'll come up with the list parts. And then it becomes a community open source project.
Oh, neat.
After all, I can't make money on this.
That's cool. There was one more thing I wanted to show from the news, but it's about a 7-minute video, so I just went ahead and put a link to it in the description. But I'll show the video off real quick because I thought it looked kind of cool here too. But Ed Snyder had posted a video on how to add a sound output modification to the color computer. So it says, installing a simple audio jack on a CoCo 2. A jack, 2 wires, a 1 UF cap in series provides sound out for driving external speakers and such. Specifically added here to provide a sound for a CoCo VGA installation. So one of the things about the CoCo VGA right now is that because it only outputs VGA and doesn't output audio, if you wanted to get audio output too, you would have to do the composite mod that also gave you audio and video out. And here he's just showing a real quick and easy way to get audio out from your CoCo. So for somebody who wants to either put like a headphone jack on your CoCo for external speakers, or if you want to get the CoCo VGA and want to get audio out without the additional expense of the composite mod, this video might be for you, and I did put a link to that in the YouTube channel here. So I'm gonna save us from watching the whole video just for the sake of brevity. So for those who are interested, go ahead and click on that. What is Paul saying here? Anyone happen to see Sockmasters mentioned in the Engadget King of Kong article yesterday? Now I have not, but you guys know what's going on right now with a lot of these high scores being challenged and being debunked and all that kind of stuff. I started off with one of the things where, and I believe the CoCo Crew mentioned this many months ago, but a guy who had the best score in the Atari or Activision Dragster game had like the world record for the time or the score or something, and then somehow recently that's come under scrutiny, and I think somebody used computer learning to analyze the source code to see if it was even possible and came up with some type of scientific method that said no, this isn't possible, and they're kind of trying to defame this guy. And I think that's now had a ripple effect, and a lot of these world records now are somehow being disputed or debunked. And of course now Billy Mitchell, the King of Kong, supposedly something's going on with that. I haven't caught up on that article, but you guys keeping up with this?
I did read the article because actually Sockmasters mentioned by name as being one of the people that possibly came up with proof that one of Billy's, or more than one of Billy's, was actually done on MAME secretly when he sent the recording in, because there's certain refresh things on the screen that are slightly different between the real hardware and MAME.
Okay.
And I guess he did some analysis on it and said, yeah, this looks like this is a MAME recording, which means it could have been, the software could have been modified to make it slightly easier, who knows what. So yeah, that's the big stink is that it might be pulling some of Billy Mitchell's records off the official books.
But just because it might have possibly been done, is there any proof that anything,
the thing is problem. Steve, this is the problem right now is they didn't want to use MAME because you can't control the hardware. Maybe it's a little faster, maybe it's a little slower. So they would do special categories for people playing on MAME that wasn't part of the world records. But nowadays, you can go to websites, get all the source code to these games, burn your own ROMs. You could be working on original hardware unless somebody inspected that motherboard and knows that ROM is an actual factory ROM and not an EEPROM. It's the same thing on real hardware, so they've already lost this war. If somebody wants to cheat, unless you're doing it in person with an expert on that board, somebody's going to be able to cheat.
Well, the record should only come from a sanctioned event, and that's where they can verify everything. And we've got an event coming up in about a month or two out here in Los Angeles where they've got hundreds of pinball and video game machines, all from that time period. And it's an absolute incredible event, but they do have officially sanctioned. I mean, you've seen that one guy that goes around. He's the official referee since the 80s. He's going to be there.
He's from down the road. He's an Iowan. That all came out of here.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean they're doing everything right on this thing. The machines have been verified and like that. And from now on, that's the way it should be. Is if you want to beat the champion, you do it in an official event.
Yeah, because they were having problems where people were sending in videotape recordings of some of these things, and they were taking those as real. The guy would have a camera point to a Donkey Kong cabinet, and then set the camera up and play the game, but you have no idea what ROM he's got in there if it's been modified in any way.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many other official competitions. I mean, look at the what they go through for, what's that, Guinness's Book World Records. There's a lot of stuff on those things there that, they used to just have them send in the reports, but now they got to have a guy go out there and verify everything before they'll allow it to be the record.
Yeah, I participated in one of those world record attempts, and it required video camera set up really far away that covered all the people there. It had to run for like 10 minutes before and 10 minutes after. It was pretty ludicrous. And we didn't make it because some people in Germany immediately beat it. So it was for the most number of people dressed in Star Trek costumes in the same spot.
I'm just waiting for Twin Galaxies to start a lowest score competition because I think Steve would just ace it.
Ho! The only way to win is not to play.
Yes, yes. Which got me thinking. I'm going through the cartridges in alphabetical order to do my new videos, and the next one on the list now is Checker King. And I'm thinking checkers isn't much different than tic-tac-toe in a sense. It's a bigger playing field. It's a little bit more strategy, but I've never played the real game. I've never done a video on it, so I'm debating, do I want to make a video on video checkers from 1980?
Yes, you do. If the computer plays against you, yes, you do, because it took my uncle, who actually knew checker strategy, just annihilating me multiple times for me to understand there were things you can do in checkers that basically make it a strategy, until you learn the strategy.
Okay. So another game I'm going to suck at, basically.
Excellent!
Just don't play it on a black and white TV, because Dwayne Downing did that because he only had a black and white on his CoCo. And the checkers on both sides come out almost the exact same shade of gray. So once the play has started and you started mixing up between, you totally lost track of what the hell your own pieces were.
Yeah. Yes.
That makes it challenging.
Yes.
It's a memory game at that point.
Yeah, right? Yeah. All right, well, we're coming on 2.5 hours in this episode here. I think we've covered a lot. I think there can be too much of a mediocre thing. So maybe we start winding down this episode. What do you guys think? Anything else we need to touch tonight? I got a lot of thumbs up for that. People watching at home. We've already done a nighttime show last night. I don't know if we need to do a nighttime show tonight, but maybe we can have this discussion offline. And anybody watching right now, if you want more pontification, I'm going to put the email address out here. What is it called? It's called CoCoTALK at CoCoTALK.live. So if there is a need or a request and people want to see more people talking ad nauseum, send us an email And we're still trying to raise money for Timmy's wheelchair. If we get enough emails, maybe we'll do another show here for a telethon. All right, so in closing and conclusion, and before we even get to that, let's go back and let's look at who's been in the live chat. Let's say hi to the people who've been here with us from the beginning. So Disney Saints fan has been here. Steve Powell has been here. Norlander, Tim Franklin, Richard Cavell, Steve Bjork, and Mark Overholser adding it to the live chat. And Nick Marota said, "Heyo!" Vocal Studio, one of Bruce Moore's YouTube accounts are starting to become like David Ladd. He's got a handful of YouTube accounts. Solstice, John Linville of the CoCo Crew Podcast was here with us. Supwitcha11 was here. And then Bruce Moore became Bruce Moore, so he switched from vocal to something to Bruce Moore. James Jones was here. Howdy from the land of Pig. Solstice, Nick Marota, Supwitcha, CoCoMan, John Linville, Richard Lorbieski was here. Who else did we have in here that I'm not repeating right now? David Ladd, Paul Fiscarelli. I don't think I've gotten that far yet. Yep, Tim Franklin, Solstice. CoCoMan was in here posting links. So CoCoMan has posted the links to the composite capture, which works very well. Steve Mitchell, Steve Powell. Grant Leighty finally came in, and he's with us. James Jones came by. Richard Lorbieski, John Linville. Alexander Wallace from Mexico is here. Paul Fiscarelli. Curtis Boyle. Paul Fiscarelli. Tim Franklin. All right, good. Mark Overholser. So there we go. We do. So David doesn't have a ton of accounts, maybe just a ton of personalities. But yeah, now Bruce is getting into multiple YouTube personalities here. All right, so for those of you who watch, and I think one of the times I peeked over, I saw we had like 26 people watching us at the same time. So thank you for that, guys. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being here every week. We appreciate that. Ron Delvaux, any parting thoughts? Anything you want to plug?
Sorry, I was...
You'd sleep at the switch.
You're breaking up on us. I didn't quite catch it, Ron.
I'm
All right, I think he's in a drive-through right now.
Yeah, that bandwidth in that garage, you got to really do something.
You need to get some of your observatory technology over there.
You run a hard line from his house.
We can't make you out, Ron. We'll get back to you in a second. David Ladd, parting thoughts.
Oh, jeez.
I've been playing with my TDP 100 over here.
Ah, okay. There you go. Tandy Data Products. Nice little machine there.
Am I gone?
You're back, Ron. You're back. Ron, you're back. All right. Mark Overholser, parting thoughts, anything you want to plug?
Oh, I'm just really excited about Alan's project with the ESP8266. I've been really interested in networking and games and stuff, so he's getting some traction on that, and I'm working on some stuff too with the bigger module, the ESP32. So.
Nice. Very nice. Curtis Boyle.
Well, I'm getting busy with work these days. I'm not working on the ease of use project as much as I'd like, but Alan was gracious enough to send us a copy of Towel, which will be included in the distribution. I actually got it installed and give it a quick run. Now I have to design an icon for it because apparently he and his lazy ass never did in the past. And also I'm going to try to get Wayne Campbell's Decode. I did find there's a couple of bugs, but we do have it working now for the most part, so I'm going to see if I can help him hunt down those bugs, and that'll be part of the next distribution as well in case you want to take somebody else's pack. Basic 09 code, those sources have been lost over the years, you'll be able to recreate it. Sorry, Alan, you're about to say something?
No, the irony of you wanting a multi-view icon for a windowing environment, I wrote specifically for people to not have to use multi-view.
It's like CoCo Inception.
Irony can be pretty ironic sometimes. Richard Lorbieski in the Witness Protection Program. Any parting thoughts?
The usual.
Yes, the usual.
Hey, Richard, by any chance, would you like to hear my rap song?
No, I don't have any gasoline on me, so sorry.
I'm just going to start calling Richard Troll Jr. here since he hasn't been around.
The Troll Apprentice, that's what it is.
And just so you know, I like the rap song, but I did not make it. That was a Myro production, and he's a talented man. And Jason the CoCoMan, any parting thoughts, things to plug?
I have not seen or heard the aforementioned rap song, and maybe that's a good thing.
It is.
Other than that, I'm going to continue to play with my video project here and see what I come up with, and hopefully I'll have some things to post up on CoCoMan.org in the near future.
Nice. Very good. Steve Bjork.
Well, as usual, you can catch a lot of us hanging out every night over there on Discord. If you haven't been over there, go on in. You can use your web browser, or you could download the client for your cell phone or computer.
There you go. Did I catch everybody? I think I did. Right. So for all things CoCo Talk,
except Nick, I don't think you caught Nick. Did you?
Where's Nick?
It's all right.
Oh, you're off my screen. You're back on my screen now. I'm sorry. And the icons shifted around. I was trying to follow the order of the icons. When people hung up, they changed order. Nick Marentes, parting thoughts, things to plug.
Yeah, good show. And the only thing I've got planned to do this week, well, sort of CoCo-wise, is I've managed to unbox or locate my MC10. I am going to
take it out back and shoot it.
That's right. I'm going to torture myself this week and actually unbox it, power it up, just to remind me why I put it. I dug it. I hit it.
Then he's got a door after that. He needs proper.
That's right.
Or not a door. He needs a jar.
And that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so I would just like to say again, thank everybody for being here, both our panel who shows up every week and the people who watch us and join us in the live chat. For all things CoCo Talk, you can visit us on the web at CoCoTALK.live. You can send a feedback to CoCoTalk at CoCoTalk.live, and you can also get some cool shirts like the ones that Mark Overholser and I and Alan Huffman and Grant Leighty are wearing here. You can get CoCo Talk shirts and I'm a Coconut shirts and coffee mugs, T-shirts, prophylactics, adult diapers, you name it. You can get all those at our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. So on that note, we're going to play us out right now with the CoCo, and look at it, Curtis Boyle's got his travel mug there looking dapper. We're going to play us out with the CoCo mug, the CoCo Talk outro music that's put together for us by Bruce Moore. And we may or may not see you guys tonight. Send an email to CoCoTalk at CoCoTalk.live if you want more of this insanity. Take care, guys. We'll see you next week for sure. CoCo forever.
Later, all.
Later, everyone.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later. Thank you for watching CoCo Talk, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer. For all things CoCo Talk, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk at CoCoTalk.live. If you love the color computer like we do, then visit I'mACoconut.com for all your color computer needs. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, then visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/OGStevieStro. CoCo Talk would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholser, Grant Leighty, Bruce Moore, Rick Adams, Ron Delvaux, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Nick Marentes, Karen Anscombe, Simon Jonason, Wayne Campbell, Steve Batson, Brian Joyce, John Strong, and Barry Nelson. Special thanks to Steve Bjork for production suggestions and Brian Joyce for our Best of 2017 episode. Please help support the CoCo community by visiting some of its contributors. The CoCo Crew Podcast at CoCoCrew.org. Glenside Color Computer Club, host of CoCo Fest at GlensideCCC.com. Jim Brain and Retro Innovations at go4retro.com. Tandy Assembly at TandyAssembly.com. Cloud9 Technologies at cloud9tech.com. Boyson Technologies at BOYSONtech.com. When does that high note come in? I love it when the high note comes in. Yeah.
Coming right up.
Yeah!
Oh my God, my ears just popped.
Hey, don't make me rap, okay? David Ladd.
Oh my God! Right face of me.
Here comes the high note.
Yeah, David, be proud to have probably posted on every post office wall in America.
Delvaux!
You really do need to tighten up the intros and exit. I'm so used to modern programming that you see on TV and cable. It's like the